even U.S. citizens can now be dragged away without a trial. This is absolutely wild. And a lot of this, I believe, tracks back to the Laken-Riley Act. The Laken-Riley Act, you will recall, was passed with the help of 42 members of the House of Representatives, Democrats, and 12, as I recall, Democratic, maybe 14 Democratic members of the United States Senate. And what it says is that ICE, it empowers, the Immigration Customs Enforcement, it empowers ICE to arrest people on U.S. soil if they suspect that that person may be here illegally. Now, they don't need any proof. And according to ICE, they can deport people without any proof, which is exactly what happened last week to roughly 250 Venezuelan nationals, or alleged Venezuelan. We don't even know. We have no idea how many of these people might be U.S. citizens, how many of them might be Mexicans, how many of them might be Venezuelans. It appears that so far, none of them have been convicted of any crimes. In fact, the White House came out and said, well, they've been in the country a short time. See, these are, and therefore they haven't had time to commit crimes. This is like Minority Report, right? The old Tom Cruise movie where we're gonna arrest people before they commit a crime to prevent them from committing the crime. I mean, this is just nuts. And I mean, it's wrong. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. It's a violation of the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or at least those parts of the Bill of Rights. And, Thom Hartmann says, I don't care what judges say. The judges are pushing back, but no judge yet so far has had the courage to hold a Trump lawyer, an administration lawyer, in contempt. And, they have the power to do that. We'll get into that a little later, and as I mentioned a couple of days ago, but this is crazy what's going on. A U.S. citizen from Chicago was among 22 people who were arrested and detained by ICE last week. The U.S. government accountability that during Trump's first term, an estimated 600 U.S. citizens were arrested and an estimated 70 U.S. citizens were deported. But this Laken-Riley Act has put this on steroids. Here's a couple of stories. Fabian Schmidt, a German-born engineer, has lived in the United States for nearly 2 decades, legally working, paying taxes, and contributing to his community. The guy's got a green card, right? None of that mattered when he returned home from a trip abroad. As soon as he landed at Logan Airport in Boston, ICE agents pulled him aside. His green card renewal was flagged for some unknown reason. No explanation, no opportunity to clarify, just a red mark in a government system. That was all it took. ICE stripped him of his clothes, subjected him to hours of aggressive questioning, locked him in a detention center, threw him into an ice-cold shower, left him shivering on the concrete floor, naked, humiliated, and terrified. For days, his mother, Astrid, desperately tried to find him. Keep in mind, this is a guy who's lived in the country for 20 years, legally, is still living here legally. She called ICE, Customs and Border Protection, and any agency that might give her an answer. They all ignored her or outright lied to her, claiming they had no record of her son. When she finally learned where he was, he said, they treat us like animals. He was barely holding it together. And why? Well, they later said, oh, it was a bureaucratic error. Yeah, right. Jessica Brosche, a German tattoo artist visiting the United States. She had a return ticket. She had a legal permission. She had the visa under the visa waiver program. She had a valid German passport. But ICE decided that she just might try to work while visiting under the Laken-Riley Act. Suspicion is enough. Once inside, the nightmare deepened. They threw her into a cell with no bed and no access to legal assistance. For 8 straight days, they kept her in solitary confinement. The lights never dimmed, and the sounds of other detainees screaming in despair echoed through the walls. This is one of these for-profit prisons that Trump loves, that Republicans love, because they kick back, massive campaign contributions to Republicans. She started hallucinating, her grip on reality slipping, desperate to feel something, anything real. She punched the walls until her knuckles bled. Meanwhile, her best friend Amelia was frantically searching for her. ICE refused to confirm her location or even acknowledge that she existed. No charges, no trial, no legal recourse, just silence. Consider Jasmine Mooney. She's a Canadian actor who starred in the American Pie series. She's a Canadian businesswoman who always played by the rules. She secured a job offer in California, completed all the visa paperwork, followed every U.S. immigration law to the letter. But that didn't stop ICE from shackling her, chaining her wrists, ankles, and waist as if she was a violent offender. For days, she was trapped in a brutal private for-profit detention facility, laying on the bare floor with nothing but a crinkled foil sheet for warmth. Then in the dead of night, ICE dragged her from her cell, bound her in chains again, and forced her onto a bus with dozens of other women. They drove for hours, denying them food, water, or bathroom breaks. By the time she arrived at another private for-profit facility, she'd been awake for 24 hours and was too weak to stand. To this day, ICE won't explain why she was detained. She tells her horrifying story to The Guardian today. You can read it at theguardian.com. She said, I was placed in a real jail unit, 2 levels of cells surrounding a common area, just like in the movies. I was put in a tiny cell alone with a bunk and a toilet. There were around 140 of us in our unit. Many women had lived and worked in the U.S. legally for years, but had overstayed their visas, often after reapplying and then being denied. They had all been detained without warning. This is the bottom line. ICE agents don't need proof. They only need the power to act, and Trump has given it to them. I mean, you know, Canadians, Germans, I mean, we've done this now to Canadian citizens, to Germans. They're starting to freak out. The tourism business in this country is collapsing. ProPublica documented yesterday how a 21-year-old U.S. citizen born in Philadelphia was dragged off to detention, how a 10-year-old American citizen girl was deported, interrupting her chemo for brain cancer. An estimated 600 U.S. citizens detained during Trump's first term. Mistaken? No. ICE has become the protection squad. The German word for protection squad is Schutzstaffel. If that's familiar to you, it's typically abbreviated by by 2 letters, SS. The protection squad. And, you know, they've been given this just basically unlimited power. And now, you know, they've sent these people down to El Salvador in defiance of a federal judge. Marco Rubio retweets, a tweet that says, oopsie, too late. I mean, a president who can deport anyone, even in violation of a judge's order, can also arrest anyone. ISIS, they did this here in Portland back, 5 years ago. They were driving around in vans with no markings on them, out of uniform, no markings on them as individuals, literally kidnapping people off the streets of Portland, beating them up or terrorizing them and then just dumping them in other places as ways to disrupt protesters. Are they going to start doing this again? I think if protests really get to be a big thing, they will. A judge stopped Trump from doing that back in 2005. If he does it today, the question isn't who the ICE protection squads and other federal police agencies will target next. It's who will be left to stop them. Today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Francis Moore Lepay's Diet for a Small Planet, 50th Anniversary Edition, just reissued. And this is from the introduction to the 50th Anniversary Edition. It starts out with a quote from George Orwell. To see what is in front of one's nose needs a constant struggle. I begin this journey with the realization that growing and eating plant-centered diets was a great choice. Today it's a no-contest necessity. Either we now make a big turn, or life on Earth as we know it is gone forever. Whoa, this blunt declaration rocks me. I'll admit it has taken me decades to get here, and I'm delighted now for this opportunity to share my learning journey with you, dear reader. You'll forgive me, though, if my first thoughts are of my own delight, as over the years, strangers have told me, your book changed my life. One story I'll surely never forget is from a friend and longtime head of the Berklee College of Music, Roger Brown. Quote, I was teaching in a small village in Kenya in 1979 when I came across a tattered version of your book, he told me. I read it on a mountain by moonlight, and it changed the course of my life. I'm still smiling. When anyone tells me of the book's effect on them, I always have to blurt out, yeah, me too. Diet for a Small Planet started as a one-page handout when I was 26, and it has profoundly shaped my life's quest. Now, in its 50th anniversary, I strive to capture key lessons that help me to this day, and that I hope will help you in these challenging times. Challenging doesn't quite do it. Over the past few years, we have been battling the fiercest storm of my lifetime. Years of attacks on the integrity of our democracy, leading to the first ever citizens' assault on the Capitol, a pandemic deemed the worst in a century, and murders by police that have fueled the Black Lives Matter movement, furthering, we can hope, our nation's long-delayed reckoning with systemic racism. At the same time, our climate crisis nears a tipping point that will drastically hasten destruction. And what first shocked me into action, hunger amid plenty, has gotten worse in recent years, even though the world's food supply offers 1/5 more calories for each of us than it did 50 years ago. Here at home, hunger is also rising. But in a mighty storm, sometimes the biggest tree comes crashing down, and for the first time, we can see its roots. Now is such a storm. So how do we grasp the roots and use what we discover to pull ourselves back from catastrophe and guide us toward life itself? Excuse me. The great news here is that millions in the United States and many more around the world are grasping the root causes of our intertwined crises and remaking their lives in ways aligned with what humans and natures need to thrive. 50 years ago, my youthful aha was that food has special power, as every day our very personal food choices connect us to each other and to all of nature. Shock in discovering the needlessness of hunger triggered in me new ways of seeing what's profoundly amiss in our world and even our power to fix it. Back then, I had no idea how urgent my message would soon become. Driven by tightening corporate power over our democracy, harms from meat-centered agriculture and diets have continued to mount, damaging human health, the natural world, and the climate. And now the ultimate harm. We have destroyed so many species, largely in feeding ourselves, that we face the 6th great extinction of life on Earth. To avoid planetary disaster, warns natural historian David Attenborough, we must allow the reflourishing of life by greatly reducing the land area we farm. And, quote, quickly and the most effective way is to change our diet, end quote. Moving beyond the vast inefficiency of meat-centered eating and choosing plant-centered diets, he projects, would cut in half the land use and still produce plenty of food for all. Now, with vastly more at stake than when my own eyes first opened, it's critical to grasp how we got here. So let's go for those roots. Over the 50 years since I sat in the UC Berkeley Library pondering the root causes of hunger, I've tried to keep digging into the question beneath the question to help me grasp why we humans have messed up so badly. And here's the deepest question my digging has turned up so far. Why are we together creating a world that as individuals none of us would choose? After all, I've never met anyone who gets up in the morning vowing to make another child starve or to turn up the planet's temperature. In the 20th anniversary edition of this book, I introduced the power of ideas to explain what seems inexplicable. I invite you to read my introduction to that edition directly following this one. Today, I express the root challenge this way. While seeing is believing is a common expression, for our species, the reverse is often true. Believing is seeing, or as Albert Einstein put it more directly, it is theory which decides what we can observe. In other words, our internalized filters can blind us to solutions right in front of our noses, requiring precisely the constant struggle George Orwell calls to us in that opening quote.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak, happy Passover this weekend, and Palm Sunday. A lot going on. The show must go on, even if it burns the Constitution to ashes. I'll explain in a minute. Also, was there a lack of urgency in the Supreme Court's deportation ruling? You betcha. Are the Republicans on the Supreme Court again sucking up to Trump? Well, you know, is a frog's ass watertight? Also, Geeky Science, evil robots could start a financial crisis or even a world war just to profit the corporations that own them without those corporations even knowing about it. Say, this is a warning, literally a warning from the Bank of England. I'll tell you about that in the first hour. In the second hour of our program, by the way, it's Anything Goes weekend, Anything Goes Friday, you know, whatever topics you want to talk about. In the second hour, how could China win a war against the U.S., especially a trade war? And top Senate Democrats propose emergency Social Security payment boosts, $200 a month to deal with Trump with Trump's tariffs. And Authoritarian Alert. There's a new dress code in Washington, and it's straight out of Mao Zedong's dictator's playbook. In the third hour of our program, the SAVE Act, what to know about the House-passed bill requiring proof of citizenship. Hillary Clinton sends out a warning. I've been warning about this for months, maybe a year. And finally, disgraced dictator wannabe quits presidential palace in shame. This is in South Korea, of course. Could we learn some lessons here in America? So that's our day. Plus, as I said, no guests, just you and me and whatever's on your mind. But my Hartmann report, and also just an amazing daily song here that Louise put together today. It's going to knock your socks off. The Hartmann report, the show must go on, even if it burns the Constitution to ashes. That's my daily take over at HartmannReport.com. And, so it's like great minds think alike. I published this at 6:55 this morning, Pacific time. At 7:55, Chauncey DeVega, he's been a regular on this program, a great guy. So, I have so much respect and admiration for Chauncey. Published a very similar piece over at Salon. Basically saying the same thing. And the point is that if you really want to understand what's going on with Trump, if you really want to understand the Trump administration and what Donald is up to, how he thinks of himself as president, all you have to do is realize that for Donald Trump, it's all a show. He views the White House as a soundstage, like the fake boardroom that NBC created for the Apprentice. He sees the people around him as a supporting cast who can be easily and quickly replaced if they don't, perform well enough. And partly this is because this is all he knows how to do. He was a terribly incompetent businessman. He pissed away his father's entire fortune on a series of businesses that he ran into the ground one after the other. Trump steaks, water, board game, Taj Mahal, castle, vodka, mortgage, magazine, ties, cologne, vitamins, ice, suits, homes, financial, Trump Institute, Trump New Media, Shuttle Airline, Plaza Hotel, Trump University, New Jersey Generals, Tour de Trump, Trump Mag. Every single one failed, often spectacularly. The only real success Donald Trump has had his whole entire life was before he entered politics, was the Apprentice program, which Mark Burnett carefully staged and choreographed, and NBC carried and promoted, and General Electric invested in by paying for Donald Trump's acting lessons. It succeeded because Donald had no control over it. He just showed up and did what the show's writers and Burnett told him to do. And, also running the White House like a reality show or a game show also fits in with his personality and his psychopathy. As a sociopath or a psychopath, as both Bandy Lee and Dr. Justin Frank have mentioned on this program, his brain was already wired to view other people as mere props in the grand play of his life. People with his affliction have little ability to empathize with others or even to recognize other people as fully human. It's why he was so absent from parenting his own kids, why he serially cheated on each one of his 3 wives, why he uses people up and discards them and has done so his entire life. It's why he bonded so tightly with that psychopath Roy Cohn, who delighted in sending an innocent Ethel Rosenberg to the electric chair just for his own entertainment. It explains why he'd sent an innocent man to a horrible prison in El Salvador and then refused to bring him back. Not admitting a mistake is more important to his narcissistic ego than doing the right thing. I mean, he literally does not have the ability to understand or even imagine the terror that Mr. Garcia, his wife, and his 2 children, or 3 children, including his nonverbal autistic son, must be feeling. Running the White House as a reality show also explains Trump's casting for his cabinet. He's repeatedly said that he wants people who are telegenic. His cabinet officers get it. They realize that their job is to perform. Yesterday, you had this pathetic cabinet meeting. Well, it was really a show, produced by Donald Trump, where, he went around the room and each one of them said, "Oh, Donald, you're so brilliant. We love you so much. You've done such good things for this country. Thank God you're our president." And he expects his cabinet officers, Biden expected his cabinet officers to show up to work every day, to run their agencies for the benefit of the American public. Trump doesn't care about that. Trump wants his cabinet officers to put on performances. That's why you see Kristi Noem in a tight top or an ICE uniform pointing big guns and showing off her hair extensions and $60,000 Rolex watch to El Salvadoran prisoners. Bob Kennedy going to funerals and entertaining conspiracy nuts. Pam Bondi appearing on Fox News with a little gold cross so often that, they should pay her a salary. Ditto for Carolyn Levitt. I mean, once you understand this, you understand how and why Donald Trump is running the White House, that it's all just a performance in his mind. You also understand that that's why he's such a threat to world peace. This is a guy who doesn't appear to even maintain a driver's license. Can you imagine Donald Trump standing in line at the DMV? He grew up in a 23-room mansion filled with servants, silk, and guilt. He has no understanding of the lives and struggles of everyday citizens. It also explains why he's just fine with billionaire-funded Republican legislators, many of them also psychopaths, gutting Medicaid, defunding public schools, denying the climate crisis, worsening student debt, privatizing Medicare, and refusing to pay for food banks and school lunches. Not to mention his right-hand billionaire, Elon Musk, condemning millions of people across the planet to horrible deaths from HIV and tuberculosis by destroying USAID, while he's crippling Social Security and firing hundreds of thousands of federal workers who now have to figure out how they're going to pay their mortgage and put their kids through school. But the biggest danger is his constant craving for bigger, more spectacular, better ratings. He wants the adulation and the eyeballs, like throughout his entire life, and he doesn't care who it hurts. And for that, he's climbed up on the world stage in the past 2 weeks. He's declared a spectacular trade war against China, the world's second largest economy and the world's second largest military, soon to be larger than ours. 15% of China's GDP is tied up in the United States. But that country is going through a crash right now. They've got a housing bubble there. They're experiencing deflation. They have an internal debt crisis. Backing President Xi into a corner like Trump is doing is insanely reckless. Add drama to the show and increase his ratings. It could also, though, lead to World War III. And China has a larger army, a larger navy, and a nuclear stockpile that could wipe out America a dozen times over. Plus, they've built this really strong alliance with Russia. I mean, this could be like World War II all over again, except this time Russia's not our ally and Europe doesn't want to get involved. It's tempting to just sit back and watch the Trump show, but it's coming for us. Every single one of us. Not one of us is going to emerge in this unscathed.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. Was there a lack of urgency in the Supreme Court decision on Mr. Abrego Garcia? We'll talk about that in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Dr. Bill, listed on KPFK in Los Angeles. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Tom, I wanted to express my being appalled by the fact that we've had a massive breakthrough in cancer research in recent years. Yet we've heard precious little about this in the regular media. Researchers like Dr. Thomas Seyfried, that's Seyfried, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, have established that most types of cancer are based in mitochondrial insufficiency or dysfunction in the affected tissue. And the fact that there are treatment regimens that promise to, that is to say, that often can reverse the disease process. We're basically talking about the cancer metabolic model. That's really key. And actually, if listeners will just Google cancer metabolic model or Dr. Seyfried by name, it's easy to become educated about this, and I would suggest this is terrifically important.
There's a supplement out. I noticed they're selling it over at agelessrx.com that claims to be a mitochondrial nutrient or stimulant or something like that. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about, Bill?
Well,
for people who don't know what we're talking about, by the way, the mitochondria are the theory is that originally they were cells themselves, but they're little engines inside our cells that convert glucose into energy and drive the cellular function. So back to you, Bill.
Yeah, each one is like the powerhouse of the cell, literally. Right. And we can't talk like an hour, but the treatment methods. First of all. 1 second, I lost my play. Okay, ketogenic diet is very promising. Use of various antioxidants. There's also
do you think it's high protein or just low sugar? My sense of it is a ketogenic diet benefits people not because of the high protein levels, but because it has basically no sugar in it, which you can accomplish without damaging your kidneys with all that protein. Normal cells can live on either sugar, like glucose really, or ketones, and cancer can't. So you're basically you're starving the cancer. Yeah, that's one of the by depriving it of sugar
approaches.
Or glycogen or glucose.
Yes, and cancer literally thrives on sugar.
Yeah.
By the way, my recent work is based on earlier work from almost 100 years ago by Dr. Otto Warburg. And it's a further elaboration of that work, and it's good, solid research. This is not just speculation. Yeah. So this is really worth looking into.
Yeah.
I hadn't been in my family came down with it. Actually, my mom did, my sister did, and they just went the regular approach, which is just, my view, as a holistic doctor, is just horrible. But hopefully I can steer some other folks in a more positive.
Well, you can do both. I mean, when Louise had breast cancer, she had surgery and chemo, but she also, radically changed her diet and started a whole bunch of supplements that her holistic physician recommended. I don't think you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well,
I had a friend who had colon cancer, and he said, "I'm gonna cure this with a macrobiotic diet," and he died 7 months later.
Well, you have to use discrimination and intelligence. There are some folks that take extreme positions, but I do think that generally speaking, we don't have to go the conventional approach.
Yeah.
The conventional approach has some problems, including and often to leading to an actual exacerbation of the condition over a few years. Yeah. That was true of my mom in the 70s.
Bill, I'm out of time. I'm sorry, but thanks for the call. It's fascinating stuff. I've always been fascinated by how our bodies work. 19 minutes past the hour. Stick around. We'll be right back. You're going to love this song. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Well, it's the brand new Confederate States of America, plantation politics. The old Confederate States, today known as MAGA America, the new Confederate States, were devoted to making America as white as possible, stripping women and minorities of political and economic power, gutting workers' rights, rigging election outcomes, their leaders nakedly taking bribes, using the phony veneer of Christianity to justify brutal policies, including slavery, making queer people invisible, reconfiguring schools for indoctrination, having their militias terrorize minorities and their opponents, and maintaining a government of, by, and for rich white men. And these are the principles, the core principles around which the modern-day GOP has reorganized itself. You can find an entire article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled "The Plantation Politics of MAGA America. Is this the future we want?" Check it out.
Trump in the wings with the lights going black. Script in his fist, no plan to come back. The White House a set, the flag just a prop. Truth takes a bullet, the cameras don't stop. He's never been real, but the danger is true. He's gambling with lives for a headline or two. The audience cheers as the nation breaks down. He laughs at the fire as he melts off the crown. The show must go on, no matter who dies. Trump feeds on the drama, the pain and the lies. The lights are still flashing, the stage is still red. He'll dance through the ashes, over bodies and dread. And the credits won't roll till the world's overdrawn. But don't change the channel, the show must go on. Trump picks his cast by the glint in their teeth. They strut for the lens while he hollows beneath. He fired the truth, replaced it with spin, gave cruelty a suit and let chaos walk in. He calls out the generals, plays soldier in jest, while billionaires slobber and beg to be blessed. To him we're all extras to discard and erase, as he bombs out the world for a close-up on his face. The show must go on, no matter who falls. Trump loves a collapse if the ratings stand tall. The music is madness, the crowd hypnotized, while the Constitution is vaporized. And the set may be fake, but the threat is full drawn. So buckle in, baby, the show must go on. Trump never drove, never wept, never bled, just powdered and posed while democracy bled. The poor are a nuisance, the sick just a drain. He plays to the rich while we choke on the pain. He gutted the laws, gave the grifters the keys, and laughed while the planet fell down to its knees. He's hunting a war like a tiger in heat, 'cause nothing says ratings like global defeat. Roy Cohn in the mirror, Mussolini in the eyes, the children in cages, the oceans that rise. The cabinet's casting, the flag is a screen, and behind it all, Trump cold and obscene. The show must go on, though the curtain is torn. Trump grins at the ruins of a nation war-worn. It's theater of blood, it's empire on fire, and he's standing alone in the smoke and the wire. The world is a stage, he's the bringer of dawn. But when morning won't come, the show still goes on.
The Trump administration, Mr. Abrego Garcia must be returned to the United States. Maybe sort of, we're going to pass this back to the lower court and let the lower court decide. Maybe they didn't, maybe they exceeded their authority. That was part of the decision. I mean, this is just totally wacky stuff. A lot of your legal commentators are pointing out that there's just a screaming lack of urgency here. I mean, this guy is in a hellhole prison while his kids are just tormented. And his wife, I mean, she was on TV crying yesterday. This is terrible. And finally, this for this hour, this is an amazing story. This is out of the Daily Star in the UK by Jerry Lawton. Rogue traders that are robots could start World War III. They could produce all kinds of crises. This is a warning from the Bank of England. Literally, the Bank of England. They said artificial intelligence ability to exploit profit-making opportunities is a danger. if they are deployed to act autonomously. They could learn that, for example, when there's a crisis, like a plane crashing into a building or something, that suddenly the value of airline stocks goes down. So what do? The AI infiltrates the systems of an airplane and crashes the plane, and after buying puts on the airline stock, for example. I mean, they say other AI programs may identify and exploit weaknesses in our system or in other trading firms, and they can amplify big moves in bond or stock prices. The committee's report said, quote, models might learn that stress events increase their opportunity to make profit and so take actions actively to increase the likelihood of such events. We're literally talking about rogue robots, AI robots, causing crises so that the companies that are running them, these big trading firms, can profit. A recent IMF fund, the International Monetary Fund, showed more than half of all patents produced by trading firms are related to AI. Holy cow. Pretty soon AI is going to be running all of our trading, and much of it is apparently being run by AI right now. Incredible. So it's Anything Goes Friday, Anything Goes weekend. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, helping you win the water cooler wars.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. We're right here. I'll be right back with you. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Libya and the Global Enduring Disorder by Jason Pack. And this is from the preface, titled Welcome to the Enduring Disorder. Today's international system is like a ship adrift during a pandemic. With the captain lost to the virus and the most capable and conscientious members of the crew self-isolating in their cabins, the deck is now teeming with contagious megalomaniacs. Rather than collaborate, each thinks he knows how to steer the ship better than the admirals. As the winds pick up, a fight breaks out among those scrambling to infiltrate the bridge. When the winners emerge from this melee and they reach the captain's chair, some choose to deliberately steer into the choppiest waters, each clutching the steering wheel until a competitor bursts in behind them and ejects them from the hot seat. As the vessel craters from stem to stern, those with fainter constitutions or a greater respect for the competency hierarchy have simply chosen to retire to their cabins. Will the crew eventually reemerge from their quarters to put the technocrats back in charge? Might the most reckless passenger subjugate the others, lock the convalescent crew members in their quarters, and emerge as the new de facto captain? Or should some sort of self-sustaining equilibrium have been reached with the vessel zigging and zagging indefinitely, neither capsizing nor reaching port? From my vantage point, watching U.S. policy toward Libya veered this way and that over the years, the events of the spring and summer of 2019 stood out as a high watermark of chaos and contradiction, with a multiplicity of relevant actors vying for prominence. They were also representative, in microcosm, of larger global trends. Witnessing them led me to question my assumptions about the West's future role in the world and the fundamental principles underpinning the international system. It was dawning on me that the contemporary ship of state had become permanently unmoored, careening back and forth due to contradictory decisions undertaken by ill-coordinated power centers. Plato envisioned such a scenario in The Republic. He warned that true democracy would lead to populism. Contempt for experts would ensue, eventually culminating in short-sighted and reversal-prone approaches to policy formation. He also warned that once this point was reached, it would be nearly impossible to put the genie back in the bottle. Over the past few years, my day-to-day experience of the foreign policy-making process in Washington, London, and Tunis, and the resulting outcomes in Libya, seemed to be embodying Plato's forecasts. In keeping with this observation, this book proposes that the international system has exited the post-Cold War period with its well-established features and dynamics and entered a new historical epoch, termed the enduring disorder. This new historical period, which remains under-researched, is characterized by its own structures, trends, and interactions. They are not scientific laws that can be definitely discovered through experimentation, but rather patterns and trend lines that may be intuited from lived experience. My main contentions about our historical moment are interrelated. One, that the international system's interaction with Libya is an ideal arena to describe the key features of this new historical era, but that study of the Syrian, Yemeni, Venezuelan, or Ukrainian microcosms would likely work as well. And two, that the enduring disorder will long outlast the specific sequence of events set in motion by former American President Donald Trump or any given Libyan warlord. My analysis is that their emergence on the world stage was merely symptomatic of the enduring disorder, not its root cause. Actually, it is the enduring disorder that has given rise to Trump, Brexit, and the unique trajectories of state implosion that have befallen Libya, Yemen, and Syria. On the ground in Libya in May of 2019, the latest round of civil war had settled into an uneasy stalemate. Economic activity was stymied. The water and electricity grids were periodically shut down by the combatants. Civilian casualties mounted, and international peacemaking efforts had ground to a halt. The previously bustling southern suburbs of Tripoli were now crisscrossed by the ebb and flow of tanks and technicals. A parallel war of maneuver was also unfolding on the banks of the Potomac. The allies of President Trump sought to outflank the permanent institutions of the U.S. government in the tussle to shape American policy toward Libya's perpetual conflict. This was yet another skirmish between familiar adversaries. In the prior battles between Team Trump and U.S. institutions that set various aspects of Russia, Ukraine, and the Middle Eastern policy, each side had already demonstrated its unique strengths and weaknesses. This dynamic of Team Trump versus the institutions would become intimately familiar to all Americans during the tug of war to set the governmental response to the COVID pandemic. So what were the relative tactics of the adversaries? Trump's Twitter bravado was highly effective at manipulating the media, but usually quite impotent at formally changing entrenched U.S. government policies. Was the president actually trying to change American policy, but exhibiting a lack of understanding of the tools open to the executive branch? Or was he achieving his aim simply by stirring confusion, creating uncertainty, and preventing coherent coordination with America's allies? The book Libya and the Global Enduring Disorder by Jason Back. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, thom.tv. Check it out.
They snatch you up without a judge or trial, ship you off in silence, gone 1,000 miles. Say you've got no rights, no case, no name, just a pawn in their authoritarian game. Criminals always gonna crime.
Welcome back, 35 minutes past the hour. It's Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind today? Ziggy in Oneonta, New York. Hey, Ziggy, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I just want to find out, have you ever heard of an author by the name of Ingersoll Lockwood?
No.
Okay, you might want to type in that name in your Google. He wrote, at the turn of the century, a couple of books about Baron Trump and a play in the 1900 called The Last President, which is about a president who lives on Fifth Avenue in New York.
Really? That I
Yes.
vaguely recall that from 2016. Somebody uncovered that.
Yeah, well, how I uncovered it is I happened to trip over it and saw that these cult people are trying to use it as a basis of, the mythology of Trump. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And I think it's just, coincidence, but it's something of interest,
It was a novel,
and
right?
Yeah. Well, the author, I read the biography of the author, and he was really quite a man. I don't think he had any idea of Trump or anything like that. I mean, he was even the warden of Sing Sing at one time.
Whoa.
You
said his name was Ingersoll Lockwood?
Yes. Ingersoll.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go.
You probably get
The last president.
in Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out and let you think about it because I came across it earlier in the week and it just interests me.
That's
about
wild
all
stuff.
it really is worth.
That's wild stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ziggy.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Hey, Thomas, you got 1 second. I just want to mention one other thing, if I may, please.
Sure.
Okay, on March 14th, I let you know that I was readjusting my families, my kids' 401ks for them, and at that time, and I just want to let you know that their 401ks have not gone down; they've actually gone up slightly.
Whoa, what'd you do?
Okay, I'm not giving anyone any advice,
No.
but a lot of people don't realize that in every 401k, there's something called a money market fund.
Sure.
And it functions the same as a savings account.
Yeah, so you just put your money in a money market. So it's returning 3% or 4% or whatever that particular fund is.
4.5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, I just thought because if people want to freeze the losses, maybe they can.
Right.
I'm not saying they should.
Right.
Just something I would throw out there.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Ziggy.
I think we have more losses to come. Okay, take care.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
good talking to you. Joy in North Fork Valley, Colorado. Joy, what's on your mind today?
Hey, hi, Tom. It's Freaky Friday, so there we go.
Joy, I cannot understand you. There's something funky about your phone. I'm going to put you on hold, and Mateo, she's on line 3. If you can pick up Joy and figure out what's going on with her telephone, maybe she's using a Bluetooth or something, I don't know, but it was totally muffled. Frank in Hood River, Oregon. Hey, Frank, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. Excuse me. 2 quick points. When Trump became president, the very first thing Elon Musk, supposedly the world's richest man, he stopped all foreign aid, all American foreign aid, including for many, many starving people.
Right.
Yeah, and by dismantling USAID and also the Voice of America, Trump and Musk have ended the 2 biggest ways America spreads goodwill around the world.
Correct.
Trump and Musk do not want America to spread goodwill, and they do not want us to stand up to Russian and Chinese lies and propaganda worldwide.
I agree.
Yes.
I think it's fairly obvious.
And quickly, yeah, it should be
They're
obvious.
trying to cripple America on the world stage, in my opinion, to the benefit of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, and I don't exactly know why, unless they're under Putin's thumb or something.
I think it's because they hate democracy. I think there is a large group of these tech bros who believe in this dark enlightenment idea that democracy was, that was so, 18th, 19th century, and it's an inefficient system, it's clumsy, it's awkward, it takes forever to get anything done. What we need is basically a benevolent dictatorship, with a heavy dose of AI built into it. And, it's a dystopian vision, in my opinion, but this is the vision that they're running off.
Okay. All right. Well, that's frightening.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think a central concern for Democrats and anybody who loves freedom going forward is the Republicans' efforts to rig future elections. They're purging millions of mostly Democratic voters from the voting rolls, as you well know. Trump has fired our very top election security officials. as well as firing top officials who are supposed to defend us from Russian and other foreign governments interfering in elections, even including voting software, some of which is controlled by Elon Musk. If we don't have fair elections in the future, we're done as a free country.
Yeah, well, we're already halfway there. I mean, you know, the elections in places like Florida, Georgia, and Texas, I don't think that you can call them fair and free elections at all. And this is spreading across every red state in the country. You know, it's amazing how we're bifurcating the way that we did in the 1850s, where you've got the northern state. Well, you've got one group of states that are committed to democracy and another group of states that are committed to oligarchy and autocracy. Frank, well said. Thank you very much. Jessica in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I love your rant. I was so upset last night from the Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah.
No time given for the migrant father, Garcia, but no mention of the other innocent 278 migrants in prison.
Yep.
And they say 90% of them are innocent.
Yep.
So here's the thing. President of El Salvador, President Burke, is coming to visit Trump on Monday at the White House.
Yeah.
And here's the thought. He had to put 278 migrants on that plane with him. But we know that will never happen. Our Supreme Court delays why these prisoners, what they face, there were 72 deaths, and they said they could not label what they were from at that prison. There were 14 deaths that were of violent acts. And, Tom, 260 prisoners died at that prison since 2022 when it was built.
Wow.
So right now they're in there. They're being tortured. There's lack of food. There's slave labor. There are unhealthy conditions, and illnesses carry throughout the prison.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to say, here's a very strange thing of how I think this all happened. Eric Prince, he's a notorious military contractor with Blackwater, met with Trump in January to tell him how he could deport millions of undocumented migrants. And he is friends with the El Salvadorian president.
Yeah.
And it goes even further. Eric Prince is one of Pete Hesse's closest allies. Eric Prince has made multiple trips to Mar-a-Lago. Eric Prince is participating right now in our Homeland Security, our State Department, our White House National Security, and these projects for these future prisons are so scary for our country.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt if he's going to be the one building them. And I'm sorry, I'm just talking. I drink a lot of coffee. But Eric Prince was fired back in Trump's first election, when he was there for 4 years, because the UN accused him of he failed a mercenary operation in Libya.
Right.
So he is a scary one to look out for. And these prisons that are going to be built in our country are so scary.
Yeah, he wants $40 billion to build prisons in the United States. Right now we spend about $3 billion.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And there are already 7 huge prisons in Florida, and some of them are with E-Court, which is part of that Blackwater stuff.
Amazing. Amazing. Jessica, thank you for all that information. You've clearly done your homework. I appreciate it. It's always nice to hear from you. In just a couple seconds, it'll be 45 minutes past the hour, or 15 to. We'll be right back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Exposing the con in conservative. I'll be right back with your call. And welcome back. Lawrence in Berkeley. I was in Berkeley last week, or the weekend before last, I guess it was, for the Pioneers Conference. Hey, Lawrence, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. Yeah, I wanted to talk about how the Democrats can win most elections from now on, no matter how much the Republicans cheat. And I've got a name for it. Call it from audience to activist. Mm-hmm. And it applies to when we're in demonstrations, we're in marches, and we meet in the park or in some hall, or when the Congress people are doing their town halls. What you do is you try to turn the audience into activists, and you say, okay, who wants to go door to door? And all the people that want to go door to door will meet over here on the left side and begin to divide into neighborhoods. Who wants to write postcards? Who wants to become, work on the internet and become an activist on the internet? And the idea is that you have to convert all the people that start out coming to your meeting as an audience and turn them all into activists so that they will be contacting people. And when they meet people, each individual has to turn the people that they meet into activists as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So if we do that, we'll have a nation full of progressive activists by the election, and we should start now, not just before the election, so that this way you cannot lose.
Sounds like a plan, Lawrence. Your organizer roots are showing. Lawrence, thanks for a great suggestion. Mark in Signal Hill, California. Hey, Mark, what's up? Thanks for listening to KPFK.
Yeah, we spend a lot of federal tax money, send it into Washington, but get very little back to the state. I think the state's suing over a lot of these programs that are cut right now. When you sue someone and there's some money involved, there's a lot of suits, you can put it in a special account to where nobody can touch it till the suit is resolved.
You're talking escrow.
And I think that would take the money out of. They're trying to put a lot of money in the federal government coffers so they can give it to the.
So you're suggesting the state should withhold sending money to the feds? Is that your point? The state of California?
Or make a,
just put it in an escrow account? Hey, here's the problem, Mark. The state doesn't send money to Washington, D.C. The state of California does not pay taxes to D.C. You do. Individuals within California pay taxes to D.C.
It's a federal lawsuit between the state and the feds. They could create a special fund where
with what money?
It can't be touched. Yeah.
With what money?
So it's just an idea.
With what money? What money are you going to use to create a fund?
The withholding taxes.
So you'd have to go to every individual in California, or at least every employer in California, and say, stop sending money to the federal government like the law requires, and instead put this money in a fund.
Understood. It takes a little thought, but you can probably figure a way out.
Well, keep thinking, Mark. It's a start. I like the idea. I just don't see how it works. But thank you for the call. It's 49 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's Anything Goes Weekend. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back. 49 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Diane in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hey, Diane, what's up?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
Happy Friday.
Thank you. Back at you.
This is Anything Goes Friday. Mm-hmm. And before I give my reason for calling, I want to also add that Eric Prince is also a sister to Betsy DeVos.
Her brother, yes.
So the tree doesn't, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in that whole slimy group.
Yeah. And it's all
goes.
It's the fortune from, what's the multi-level marketing company? Tupperware, right? Amway, excuse me.
Oh,
yeah. That's where they get their money.
Betsy's worth billions. It's yeah.
So is he.
On and on it goes. Yeah. That, and he makes his money off of humans. You know, he doesn't make widgets or do any service. He just makes money off of human beings. I would like, in the interest of having more people go vegetarian and go easier on our climate, I would like the recipe of your wife's burgers. The mushroom burgers. Reason being, you can get a bean burger and they're good, but there's something about a mushroom, the chew and the moisture in it and everything is just like meat. Or where she got the recipe.
Well, I don't think it's a secret. It's and I'd have to ask Louise for any nuance on it. But I've watched her. I mean, what she does is she takes the what is the name of those giant mushrooms that are
portobellos?
Portobellos, right? She takes portobello mushrooms. And she'll soak them, marinate them overnight in the refrigerator in olive oil and tamari, or you could use soy sauce, but tamari is gluten-free, and a little bit of salt, and then you just grill, fry them in olive oil or grill them, something like that, and they're just spectacular. I mean, she might be adding other spices that I don't remember. Don't know of, but look up there's all kinds of recipes. And I've actually been in restaurants where they serve portobello like a burger, portobello hamburger kind of things. It's just a giant portobello mushroom. So. And
you're saying Louise slices them up?
No, you just take off the stem, and the mushroom itself is the size of a burger.
Okay. Yeah.
Check it out.
Okay.
Portobellos.
I gotcha.
Okay. I gotta move along, Diane. Thanks a lot for the call. Recipe day. That's great. Mike in Los Angeles. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. This will seem trivial given the gravity of all that we're facing, but you're my guru on Medicare Advantage, and I had a question on that.
Sure.
I work for a large public university system. We have a good range of options for insurance, and I have been on a Kaiser Permanente HMO for a long time, and I've been very happy with it. I'm going to retire in a year and a half, and I had the option of going to the Kaiser Permanente version of Medicare Advantage.
Right.
So it's got those two words attached to it, and you have scared me about it.
Yeah.
But so my question is there such a thing as a well-run, responsible Medicare Advantage program?
To the extent that they can be that, yes, and Kaiser is probably the best in the country. There's also one up in I think it might be Minneapolis, affiliated with that famous clinic up there.
Right.
But, there's a couple of Medicare Advantage programs around the country that have pretty good reputations. They're all run by nonprofits, and Kaiser Permanente at least used to be a nonprofit. I assume it still is.
I think so.
So, I would still encourage you to investigate Real Medicare because you're not inserting an insurance company between yourself and your doctor. But if the monthly cost of Real Medicare and the cost of a Medicare Medigap policy together, I mean, it can cost $300, $400, $500 a month depending on your income. If that cost is too great and Kaiser is offering a low cost or a no cost Medicare Advantage, I would totally get it why people would do that. The ones to be really wary of are the ones that are run by the big for-profit insurance companies. They just, they seem absolutely dedicated to screwing people.
Okay, good. Well, I'll keep my eyes open. It's nice because I have the luxury of being able to switch each year if it does turn out to be a bad
well, the problem is if you go more than 12 months on Medicare Advantage, it's very difficult to get back on Real Medicare. So, and typically the Medicare Advantage people don't slam you in the first year or two or three because typically you just turn 70 or 65 rather and you're still fairly healthy. It's only when you start getting sick and thus start getting expensive for them that they start making life hell for you. And at that point it's too late to go back to Real Medicare. So, those are the things you have to consider. Mike, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Good luck, yeah. Joy in North Fork Valley, Colorado. Hey, Joy, what's up? You got your audio fixed?
Hi. Yes.
Great,
yes.
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, sounds better. Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. First, I wanted to give a shout out to Louise. What she is doing is just, it's incredible. It's amazing. Her
Those
creativity
songs?
is just
she's a brilliant lyricist. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So, okay, it's Freaky Friday. Here we go. So, we're not alone on this planet, and we have been invaded, and it's been going on for a very long time, and we are being mind controlled. And that's why, sensible and intelligent people, what's going on? Actual reality with Trump and all of those things. And I think that he's a Manchurian candidate. I think that he is some sort of an alien, aliens and all of that, because it's always projection with them. So, who designed the pyramids? Not us. We still can't. We don't know who. And I don't think that they ever went away. And when they came here on this part of the earth, maybe 500 years ago or so, it was never even acknowledged. And so we have to start acknowledging these things, and we have to start having the conversation.
So, Joy, if we have been invaded, and Donald Trump, zips up his human suit over his lizard body every day or whatever, what do we do about it?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is have the conversations and stop saying, "Oh, it's absurd, it's ridiculous, no, it couldn't possibly be." Wasn't
it possible that Donald Trump could just be an evil, narcissistic psychopath?
Most assuredly, he is. He is certainly all of those things. Yes, but
it doesn't take aliens to make him that way.
Look at what happened with SCOTUS. Yeah. When you look at everything that is being manipulated with SCOTUS, there is more going on here.
I get it. Hey, I'm willing to believe that Clarence Thomas is an alien, and probably Sam Alito, too. Joy, thank you very much for the call, and happy weekend. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be right back on the other side of the break with more of your calls and Anything Goes Weekend.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Dopamine Nation, Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence by Anna Lemke, MD. This is from the introduction. This book is about pleasure. It's also about pain. Most important, it's about the relationship between pleasure and pain and how understanding that relationship has become essential to a life well lived. Why? Because we transformed the world from a place of scarcity to a place of overwhelming abundance. Drugs, food, news, gambling, shopping, gaming, texting, sexting, Facebooking, Instagramming, YouTubing, tweeting. The increased numbers, variety, and potency of highly rewarding stimuli is absolutely staggering. The smartphone is the modern-day hypodermic needle, delivering digital dopamine 24/7 to a wired generation. If you haven't met your drug of choice yet, it's coming soon to a website near you. Scientists rely on dopamine as a kind of universal currency for measuring the addictive potential of any experience. The more dopamine in the brain's reward pathway, the more addictive the experience. In addition to the discovery of dopamine, one of the most remarkable neuroscientific findings in the past century is that the brain processes pain and pleasure in the same place. Further, pleasure and pain work like the opposite sides of a balance. We've all experienced that moment of craving a second piece of chocolate or wanting a good book, movie, or video game to last forever. That moment of wanting is the brain's pleasure balance tipped to the side of pain. This book aims to unpack the neuroscience of reward and, in doing so, enable us to find a better, healthier balance between pleasure and pain. But neuroscience isn't enough. We also need the lived experience of human beings. Who better to teach us how to overcome compulsive overconsumption than those most vulnerable to it, people with addictions? This book is based on true stories of my patients falling prey to addiction and finding their way out again. They've given me permission to tell their stories so that you might benefit from their wisdom, as I have. You may find some of these stories shocking, but to me they're just extreme versions of what we're all capable of. As philosopher and theologian Kent Dunnington wrote, quote, "Persons with severe addictions are among those contemporary prophets that we ignore to our own demise, for they show us who we truly are," end quote. Whether it's sugar or shopping, voyeuring or vaping, social media posts or the Washington Post, we all engage in behaviors we wish we didn't, to an extent we regret. This book offers practical solutions for how to manage compulsive overconsumption in a world where consumption has become the all-encompassing motive of our lives. In essence, the secret to finding balance is combining the science of desire with the wisdom of recovery. Then we jump to the conclusion chapter. We all desire a respite from the world, a break from the impossible standards we often set for ourselves and others. It's natural that we would want to seek a reprieve from our own relentless ruminations. Why did I do that? Why can't I do this? Look at what they did to me. How could I have done that to them? So we're drawn to any of the pleasurable forms of escape that are now available to us. Trendy cocktails, the echo chamber of social media, binge-watching reality shows, an evening of internet porn, potato chips and fast food, immersive video games, second-rate vampire novels. The list really is endless. Addictive drugs and behaviors provide that respite, but add to our problems in the long run. What if, instead of seeking oblivion by escaping from the world, we turn toward it? What if, instead of leaving the world behind, we immerse ourselves in it? Mohammed, you'll remember, was my patient who tried various forms of self-binding to limit his cannabis consumption, only to find himself right back where he started, progressing from moderation to excessive consumption to addiction at an ever faster cadence. He went hiking at Point Reyes, a nature trail just north of San Francisco, in hopes of finding refuge in an activity that had previously given him pleasure, as he once again tried to get control of his cannabis consumption. But every turn in the bend brought fresh memories of smoking weed. Hiking trips in the past had almost always occurred in a state of semi-intoxication. And so instead of being an escape, the hike turned into an agony of craving and a painful reminder of loss. He despaired of ever being able to wrestle his cannabis problem into submission. Then he had his aha moment. At one particular vista point where he had explicit memories of smoking a joint with friends, he brought the camera up to his eye and pointed it to a nearby plant. He saw a bug on a leaf and focused the camera further, zooming in on the beetle's bright red carapace, striated antennae, and ferociously hairy legs. He was mesmerized. His attention was snared by the creature in his crosshairs. He took a series of pictures, then changed his angle and took more. For the rest of the hiking trip, he stopped to take extremely close-up pictures of beetles. As soon as he did so, his cravings for cannabis decreased. I had to force myself to be very still, he told me at one of our sessions in 2017. I had to achieve a perfect stillness to take a good in-focus picture. That process grounded me, literally, and centered me. I discovered a strange, surreal, and compelling world at the end of my camera that rivaled the world I escaped to with drugs. But this was better, because no drugs were needed. Many months later, I realized Muhammad's path to recovery was similar to my own. The book is called Dopamine Nation, Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence. It's written by Anna Lembke, MD. Dopamine Nation by Anna Lembke.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So Donald Trump has essentially declared war on China. He has imposed 145% tariffs on all Chinese imports into the United States or exports out of China. China, in response, has put a 125% tariffs on U.S. exports to China, which is mostly agricultural goods, lumber, coal, and iron ore. We send them raw materials, they send us finished goods. That's, kind of the definition of a third world country that does that. So, I think it's reasonable to try to rebalance that, but the way that Trump is doing this, 145% tariffs, this is declaring war against a country that their economy is roughly the same size as ours. Their navy is larger than ours. Their army is larger than ours. Their nuclear weapons stockpile is growing by the day, and they don't mess around. And President Xi is facing a bit of an internal crisis right now with deflation and a housing market that has just burst, a bubble that has burst. And he's not going to do anything that's going to weaken him politically. But if you really want to see where the danger to America is, consider this list. Dysprosium. Dysprosium is used in magnets for wind turbines and electric vehicles, as well as military applications like missile systems. Terbium. These are all, by the way, these are all rare earth minerals that China supplies to us. Terbium, essential for high-performance magnets and optical devices. Lutetium, utilized in advanced medical imaging technologies. Yttrium, which is found in lasers and displays and superconductors. Neodymium, crucial for permanent magnets used in electric motors. Praseodymium, used in magnets and alloys for aircraft engines. Samarium, applied in magnets and nuclear reactors. Gadolinium, important for medical imaging and magnetic refrigeration technologies. And scandium, used in aerospace components and fuel cells. Time magazine did a piece a couple of days ago about how China has just in response, this was 2 or 3 days ago, the initial response to Trump's tariffs, China retaliated by placing exports restrictions on these rare earth minerals that I just named, or at least some of them, many of them. And they note, Time magazine notes, the ripple effects could be extremely painful across many American industries. Dysprosium and terbium, for example, are found in smartphones' vibration units. Neodymium powers the motors of electric vehicles. Tungsten and ultra-hard metal is used in ammunition, semiconductor chips, and alloys found in jet engines and deep drilling rigs. All of these materials are mined and processed by China, which has spent decades aggressively building out the infrastructure to do so. This one analyst, an engineer at RAND actually, says, consider this an opening shot across the bow. This is the neodymium and praseodymium that China's using as a bargaining chip, apparently. He says it could cripple U.S. defense companies like Lockheed Martin, which needs rare earth for components in missile systems. And notes that it would be at least 8 to 10 years before we could start mining these things ourselves. People are also speculating that the other major source of many of these minerals appears to be Greenland. And in fact, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos have both invested in mining companies that are looking at Greenland, that are prospecting right now as we speak in Greenland for these rare earth minerals. So, in America, we revere con artists, and this, what Trump is doing here is a giant con. This if he really wanted to bring manufacturing back to the United States, he would do it rationally. He would do it step by step. He would do it the way that, you know, it's always been done. He would go to Congress and he would say, you guys pass these tariffs so that they will be there permanently. No company is going to build a factory in the United States because Donald Trump issued an executive order. Because they all know that A, he could change his mind next week, as he just did yesterday, and B, he's not going to be president forever. And the next president can simply reverse the executive order. Not so easy if Congress passes a law. So, you know, the one thing that businesses want above everything else is certainty. I think that, you know, in many ways, this is doing the same kind of damage to America that Brexit did to England. And who was it who was telling the British? We learned after the fact. Who was it who was telling the British, hey, you need to separate from the European Union. It'll weaken England and weaken the European Union. I mean, they didn't say that, but, you know, you need to separate from the European Union, and that'll get those damn immigrants out of England. Who was that? Oh, that was Putin. That's right. Do you think Putin's telling Trump to kick China in the teeth? I mean, Putin would just love for us to get into a trade war with China. It will hurt us. It will hurt us badly. We're going to start seeing massive inflation soon. And so even if this doesn't devolve into a shooting war, and my fervent hope is that it doesn't, although I think it's entirely possible that it may, particularly if China says, okay, screw this, we're going to take Taiwan now. Or we're going to get more aggressive around the Philippines or some of these other smaller islands. The Philippines is not a small island. It's a huge collection of islands, and, you know, some of them very large, but you get my point. There's in the South China Sea, there's all these conflict points. I mean, China, in 2010, China got into a pissing war with Japan over, I don't recall the details of it, but what I do remember is that they cut off two critical minerals that Japan needed to manufacture chips. And that was the end of that. I mean, Japan just rolled right over. Well, they're doing that to us right now. And what blows my mind is there's virtually no mention of it in the media. I mean, you can Google it, you can look it up. It's out there. Like I said, Time Magazine did a piece on it, but it's not front and center. That Trump is playing checkers and China is playing chess. That Trump is throwing rocks, and China is got a sniper figuring out where the heart is that they need to hit. And it looks like it's going to be the rare earths. And, it also looks, to me, frankly, like Trump may be doing an awful lot of this just to jack the market. I mean, he was bragging day before yesterday about how the billionaires in his cabinet were making billions and billions of dollars by having gotten out of the market just before he declared his tariffs and getting back into the market when he put his tariffs on pause. And now there's reporting, I had mentioned this day before yesterday, and then I backed off and apologized, saying, well, I can't substantiate it, but now I'm seeing reporting that some members of Congress, specifically Marge Green, but maybe Marge Green, are doing the same thing. And Adam Schiff is talking about, and Ron Wyden talking about opening an investigation into insider trading. This has been an absolute roller coaster. And then let's not forget the other thing, again, that our media doesn't talk about, which is that Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, previous to his current job, was the president or chairman, I believe chairman is the title, of both the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. This guy understands how to use finance to just bring a country to its knees. And he apparently, I've seen reports of this. I haven't seen it widely reported, and the reports that I've seen are kind of third order or third party. They're not the primary sources. But my understanding, and please fact check me on this, look it up. But my understanding is that Mark Carney called a meeting with some of his British counterparts, the heads of some of, or not British, European counterparts, some of the European countries, a number of the European countries, and Japan was in the room, and said, collectively we hold trillions of dollars in U.S. treasuries, and if we start selling these treasuries in a big way, it will really damage America. It'll drive down the dollar. It will drive up the interest rates, which will make borrowing more expensive. It'll raise mortgage rates in the United States. It'll raise credit card rates. It'll make it harder for businesses to get money to start and expand. It'll make it harder for people to get home mortgages. Not to mention the treasuries as the cornerstone of the world financial system could be shaken. I mean, it could be a revolution that just completely leaves America behind in the dust. And guess what? They're doing it. This from The Guardian this morning. U.S. dollar index slipped to a 3-year low, falling as much as 1.2%, and U.S. treasuries continue to sell off, with yields on the 10-year note jumping to 4.4% as it's on course for its largest weekly rise since the early 2000s. This is dangerous, dangerous stuff. We have, and then in corporate news, J.P. Morgan just put aside $973 million in the first quarter. Now, prior to Trump doing this, they had $72 million in their reserves. Their reserves are in case their clients start going bankrupt, can't meet margin calls and things like that. So Donald Trump has declared an international trade war, and I don't see how America can win a trade war. I mean, I have been saying for decades, that we need to bring manufacturing back home, and tariffs are one of the tools that you use to do it. But you don't do it this way. You don't do it stupidly like this. You don't rock the stock market by doing it. I mean, Joe Biden was increasing tariffs on a number of things. But he did it the right way. He did it carefully and thoughtfully. He did it in ways that are designed to bring business back, but not disrupt the entire international order. We will lose this war.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
17 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls. Welcome back. Paul in Neenah, Wisconsin. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Speaking of rare earth, I think we need some kryptonite to use against the POTUS right now. But that's another thing. It's been over a year since I talked to you, so we're both a year older. Mm-hmm. I had a chance to go to the protest here near me last Saturday. It was a slightly larger city of Appleton, and it's along College Avenue downtown. And Houdini Plaza was the epicenter of it. That's where the meeting point was. And I suppose you could make a good joke.
Is Harry Houdini from Appleton, Wisconsin?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
How about that?
We need him to make some current administration disappear, I think.
Yeah.
Either way, it was slated for 11 to 2. It wasn't that warm that day, but it wasn't bad. I dropped my lovely wife, Sally, off. It's been over 50 years now. I dropped her off by the Houdini Center, Houdini Plaza. A lot of her pickleball ladies were there with their husbands, and boy, they had their homemade signs. And they estimated the crowd was just under 3,000, and that did not include the constant stream of traffic in both directions for at least 2 hours. It did break up at the 2-hour mark, but that was enough. And I had my Jeep Cherokee. I had the USA flag, Ukrainian flag, jail Trump sign. I had my yard sign that I had made up, Vote Democratic, Save Democracy on the side of the vehicle. I had my electronic bullhorn. And those newer bullhorns, Tom, they have like a slot for an SD card or a USB thumb drive. So I did audio ahead of time, and it was just on a loop.
Great.
And it was loud.
Yeah.
It was loud, and it was saying DOGE. Despicable oligarchs grabbing everything. And then hands off my earned benefits. I will give you my Social Security and veterans benefits when you pry it from my cold, dead hands.
I love it.
And in reference, remember Charlton Heston back in the day?
Yeah, I remember that well.
And the background music, I won't call it music. Your wife's doing her music thing. The background music was a chainsaw running. And I made a whole bunch of passes back and forth, and boy, the crowd, there's so much fervor and energy, you would not have believed it. But there, near my where my wife and some of her friends were at one point, there was a little bit of an incident. And she didn't catch all of it, but then we come to find out the details. Well, what happened was there was some guy at a stop-and-go light in this vehicle. Someone from the crowd, a guy, of course, went over, grabbed him out of the vehicle, and started hitting him. Okay?
Wow.
I think you can guess what kind of vehicle it was.
Tell me, please.
Tesla.
Oh.
It was a Tesla.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So some of the people in the crowd, they broke it up. They're chanting peaceful protest, and they got him to stop, and the police got him. They hauled the guy away. Well, guess what? It turns out that the driver of this Tesla, who was a guy had lost his job 3 years ago, and he's been an Uber driver. So in order to, because the fuel efficiency is much better, it was probably a used Tesla. And so he was just an Uber guy, and his wife was in the plaza protesting against Trump and Musk.
Oh,
so here they pull this guy. He's okay. Everything's okay, but there was that one incident. But you gotta. I'll tell you what, people are mad.
Yeah, and not everybody who drives a Tesla is a Trump humper. I mean, a lot of people bought Teslas back when it was a good idea. Paul, thank you for the call. What an amazing story. 21 minutes past the hour. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out. We're back 23 minutes past the hour and picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Joe in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Hey, Joe, what's up?
Not much, Tom. I did get kind of segued listening to callers and stuff, and I did have a shout out for Mike Johnson and the Seven Mountain Evangelicals and those people that are trying to take people's rights away. That people don't really realize this, but in America, about 1 million of the people that become pregnant a year ends in miscarriage.
Yeah, 1 out of 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage.
Yeah. So my suggestion for them is to spend their time trying to pray that away. Since birth starts at conception, these are God's abortions. So pray for him to stop and leave the rest of us alone. Just a suggestion for them. I do have a quick thing. I've been bringing up this whole deal with the studies on BPA, which is a chemical in plastic. Mm-hmm. The Koch brothers industries do a lot of that. That is really, there's so many studies now. Of course, they're burying it just like they did the tobacco scandals in the past where they were going, oh, no, it's good for you. But there's a direct correlation between plastics and autism. And you can see it right down to the way males in the womb process these chemicals.
Right,
there's a direct correlation for it.
Imitators.
And so, but here's one thing I was going to mention on a health note for pregnant women. One of the highest concentrations of that BPA are on the receipts that you get when you go to a restaurant.
Ones. Yeah, just the thermal ones, yes. In fact, they're coated with BPA.
Yeah, exactly. It's a ink stabilizer or something. But for any woman,
it changes color when exposed to heat. That's how they work. They're thermal printers.
Yeah. So I'm just saying it's a very high concentration of the BPA on there. And any woman, or if you know someone who's pregnant, they need to be trying to remove as much plastic from their lives. A couple of quickies. You know, Benjamin Nutcase showed up at the White House to act like I'm here only to work on the tariffs, which was a big staged event.
Who are you talking about? You said Benjamin. Are you talking about Netanyahu?
Yeah, of course. I call him Benjamin Nutcase.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize where he came from before he came to the White House was from Budapest, where he was over there praising Orban for pulling out of the International Criminal Court that just found Benjamin Nutcase guilty of war crimes.
Yep.
And then a couple of quickies. I call him the putrid wannabe Tom Cotton. You know who this is. At a security hearing I was watching last week, he was talking about Iran shooting nukes into America because, you know, they're trying to get on the war footing.
Tom Cotton was saying
finally, I'm sorry?
Tom Cotton was saying Iran was going to shoot us with nukes?
That's right. He said that.
A, they don't have nukes, and B, I don't think they have an intercontinental ballistic missile, do they?
Of course they don't. But he's trying to gin that up, and it was security cabinet, not cabinet meeting, but like a congressional
hearing. Yeah, I think Netanyahu wants a war with Iran. I don't think they'd win it, though. I think it would be a disaster.
Yeah, but just the fact that Tom Cotton would even suggest that Iran was going to shoot nukes into America is so warmongering.
Yeah.
And then finally, I watched there was a confirmation hearing where every time they asked a question that would make President Trump look bad, they'd say we'll have to talk about that in closed session.
I know. They're all terrified. And now they've got these little Trump pins. Well, I'll talk about that in the next hour. But Joe, thanks for the call. 27 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So now Donald Trump's trade guy, Steve Witkoff, he's not the trade guy, he's the emissary or whatever. He's meeting with Putin right now. Yeah. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Stokely, A Life by Peniel E. Joseph. This is from the preface. Stokely Carmichael is a troubling icon of America's civil rights years. His Black Power call became a national Rorschach test. Whereas many blacks viewed it as righteous, many whites saw violent foreboding. Newspapers brooded over Carmichael's words, quickly forming a consensus that judged the slogan to be at best intemperate and at worst a blatant call for anti-white violence and reverse racism. In 1966, Black Power reverberated around the world, galvanizing blacks, outraging whites, and inspiring a cross-section of ethnic and racial minorities. In 1969, Carmichael left the United States for Conakry, Guinea, where he reinvented himself as a roving Pan-Africanist organizer and professional revolutionary. For the next 30 years, he remained an energetic dissident, a throwback to the heady years of the 1960s. Carmichael turned the quest for black political power into his life's work. His faith in a style of politics many considered anachronistic came out of the same tenacity and stubbornness that once made him one of the most effective and controversial activists of his generation. These same qualities, however, limited Carmichael's efforts as a Pan-Africanist political mobilizer. Before leaving America, Stokely resigned as Black Power's glamorous enfant terrible. Telegenic, brash, equal parts angry and gregarious. Whether dressed in three-piece suits, leather jackets, sharecroppers' overhauls, or African dashikis, Carmichael became to represent the era's multifaceted identity, a hipster hero whose easy grace allowed him to consort effortlessly with both the dignified and the damned. The name Stokely Carmichael first came into my consciousness when I was a young boy coming of age in New York City. As the proud son of a Haitian mother who belonged to local 1199 Hospital Workers Union, part of SEIU, I grew up hearing stories of how civil rights activists, Black Power revolutionaries, Pan-Africanist freedom fighters, and trade unionists helped to shape a new world in America and beyond. By the time I was in elementary school, I was on my first picket line, accompanying my mother in support of an 1199 strike. Both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King supported 1199 during the 1960s. Stokely Carmichael's political importance came into sharper focus when I was in junior high after the premiere of the landmark PBS documentary series Eyes on the Prize, which featured the 24-year-old Carmichael's fiery Black Power speech and rightly characterized Stokely as his generation's heir to Malcolm X. Over the course of a decade of research on Carmichael, I would come to understand him as that and much more. Carmichael's youth, casual dress, and charisma made him an easily identifiable hero, one whose quick smile and passionate speeches left an indelible impression. An adopted son of the South by way of Trinidad, the Bronx, and Harlem, Stokely adapted to while transforming whatever environment he encountered. As a native New Yorker growing up in the city's tense racial climate of the 1980s, I found Carmichael's survival instincts appealing. As a young graduate student in Philadelphia, I had the opportunity to hear him speak and briefly met him afterward. He encouraged me to stay committed to the Black freedom movement, a struggle he defined as infinite. With his flowing African robes, gray hair, and white beard, he looked like a prince. And he had changed his name. He was no longer Stokely Carmichael. As Malcolm Little had become Malcolm X and later El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Stokely had become Kwame Ture. It was a name that paid homage to his two African heroes, men who had been the first presidents of their countries, Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah and Guinea's Sekou Touré. Kwame Ture spelled the Guinean's name not as the French did, as white Europeans did, but as Arabs and Muslims did. Sekou Touré, S-E-K-U-T-U-R-E. As a college student, Carmichael helped transform America by organizing sit-ins, demonstrations, and voter registrations during the Civil Rights Movement's heroic years, a period that roughly encompasses the decade between the 1954 Brown v. Board Supreme Court decision, desegregation decision, and the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and has become enshrined in public memory through national holidays, films, commemorations, and monuments. Carmichael's deep sense of justice contributed to his evolution into Kwame Ture, the Pan-Africanist revolutionary and anti-capitalist organizer who moved to West Africa and remained tenacious in the face of searing political setbacks. Carmichael ultimately judged America incapable of creating the free and just world he had struggled for as a young man. But despite living in Africa for the final 30 years of his life, Carmichael's legendary stature as a Black Power activist lingered even if many ignored his lasting contributions to civil rights struggles that included a bruising quest for the vote in the Deep South. Although today largely forgotten, Stokely Carmichael remains one of the protean figures of the 20th century, a revolutionary who passionately believed in self-defense and armed rebellion, even as he revered nonviolence. The book Stokely, A Life, by Peniel L. Joseph. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. It's the great revenge. Trump's Orwellian America is taking shape. The key to it was this insane executive order titled Ending the Weaponization of the Federal Government. And basically what it does is it sets up the weaponization of the federal government. It proclaims that the Biden administration was, using the Justice Department to go after Trump people and Republicans, and it does it in a way that basically rationalizes they're doing the same thing. This is a absolute danger to our republic. This executive order and Trump's assertions around it, and you can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed about it, titled The Great Revenge, Trump's Orwellian America Takes Shape, over at HartmannReport.com. Get ready for the investigations, the arrests, and the show trials. HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour, and picking up your calls here. Justin in Maui, Hawaii. Hey, Justin, what's up?
Hey, aloha Friday there, Tom.
Aloha back at you.
So I'm a co-leader. Yeah, thanks. I'm a co-leader for Maui Indivisible, and March 4th we had 200 to 300 people show up for a protest. And then April, 5th, we had 2,000 to 3,000 people show up in front of Whole Foods because if Bezos is going to support Republicans taking my Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, then I'm not going to buy groceries there or rent videos on Prime or use Amazon. And we have another one coming up at University of Hawaii, Maui College, on the 19th, and but we're doing this around an ask, and that is that we want the governor Green of Hawaii, the only blue state governor who hasn't developed a plan moving forward of what he's going to support and how he's going to fill these 25,000 jobs lost and the federal cuts. We want the legislature to address what their priorities are because we can't rely on the federal funding, and we need to pivot and create more revenue here. And we haven't really gotten much communication from the legislature or the governor on how they're going to do that or, at all. There's like no plan. But the people are energized and the people are starting to write letters and get together. And when you're all together and you're not at home doom scrolling and you get much more energized and want to be a part of, the solution. Yeah. Amen, Justin. I so honor your activism, your participation. We've been talking for years on this program, and you're right there in the thick of it. And I salute you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we passed the first Citizens United resolution thanks to listening to your show. Good on you. Good on you. Justin, thanks for the call. It's always great to hear from you. I appreciate it. And keep up the great work there in Hawaii. Yeah. Cam in Arlington, Virginia. Hey, Cam, from one side of the country to the other. What's on your mind, Cam?
Hi, Tom. Hi, Tom. It's good to talk to you again. And a quick comment about the BPA thing. I'm sorry, I forget the gentleman's name who brought it up, but I, speaking as an autistic person myself, we are out here and we are human, and I don't always like hearing there's a risk of autism as the reason why this dangerous chemical. I agree is terrible. Is like there's plenty of other reasons why we should be banning it. Yeah, but I get it. But that's actually not the issue I was calling about. So I wanted to ask you something about the pro-Palestine protests, and I wanted to start by saying my heart goes out to our Jewish brothers and sisters. I see this administration simultaneously using this community as an excuse for these deportations while simultaneously behaving like a fascist, and that's got to be incredibly infuriating. And I think it stirs up anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic sentiments. I think it. Frankly, it's hurting. J Street. I forget the guy's name who runs J Street, but he's, it's the pro-Israel progressive movement here in the United States. It's not pro-Netanyahu at all, and they are really concerned about this. Talking about how what Netanyahu is doing in Gaza and the way that Trump is cracking down on foreign exchange students who dare to speak out is actually, increasing anti-Jewish hatred. Well, I guess I wanted to ask your opinion on this. And I harbor my own suspicions, but I know a lot of people of my age group that seemed to, the main reason they didn't participate in this election was their disapproval of that situation over there and the Democrats' support of it. And I haven't really seen that support wavering on the Democrat side. And I just wonder if you have any thoughts on how that might impact future elections, because I don't think Trumpism is going away anytime soon, even if we do manage to get Trump out of the White House in 2028. Yeah, no, the problem for Democratic politicians is that AIPAC, which kind of dances to the tune of Netanyahu, the American Israel Political Action Committee, AIPAC took down 4 good progressive Democrats in the last election. They did it right here in Portland, and nobody even knew where the money was coming from until after the election when they just destroyed Sheila Jayapal, Pramila Jayapal's sister.
Everybody, all the Democrats now are afraid of AIPAC. And so they're, not all of them, but many of them. And so, they're reluctant to speak out against Netanyahu or Israeli policy with regard to Gaza and the West Bank. And I think it's a shame because, this was made possible one more crack in the wall. This was made possible by five, sellout Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right. Yeah, that was about to say that this comes down to a Citizens United issue, I suppose.
Yep, it so often does. It so often does. Cam, thanks for the call. Spot on. It's a great point, great question. Michael in Gainesville, Florida. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
Yes, hi. It's so hard to know what to do nowadays. We've got a Christian Zionist genocide. We've got a populist impeachment for incompetence. We've got, as grounds, constitutional crisis, whatever. In the old
trade
days,
war.
Yeah, and a trade war and financial crisis. And in the old days, we used to have marches. And I think in the modern day, we need to have rolling marches. And instead of sit-ins, we need to have play louds, on campuses. On campuses, you can get arrested, but back in the old days, everyone didn't walk around with a loud device in their pocket, and in their cars and in their dorm rooms, you could really blast out a campus. And as far as rolling protests, picture a rolling Tesla tailgate parade protest. In other words, picture them as like, purposely. And listen, in case you don't know how real this is, I-95, they've had this in Broward and Palm Beach and Miami back for decades, where they've shut down I-95, and it never has made the newspapers.
Who is they?
Would do it all the time. The kids would do it just for fun. They would completely shut down all.
What, just by driving slowly
lanes
across all lanes?
And they'd stop and get on their hoods and dance and party and they'd do that, and it never made the.
Is this a spring break problem, Michael?
It would happen kind of spontaneously, to my knowledge. It wasn't a spring break thing, no. It would, but it never made the news. Is what's amazing.
Interesting.
And I'm telling you, just roll by slowly Tesla or local city centers of business, and there's enough people where I think you could catch on where there'd be cities where there'd be, like some cities that might go on 24/7, and there's such and such city, it's been 3 days where there's been a constant, because you need 50 cars, and it's like 500 if they're going in a circle, and then they're replenished with 5 occasionally, and everyone's having a little party and beeping their horns with playing songs. And I think a rolling marches and protests and having loud, using sound instead of your butts on college campuses could be a thing. And of course, your wife's there as far as protest songs and having it played on local college campuses. I don't know who does your marketing, but there's some effort there, perhaps.
Well, the songs are free. We don't assert copyright on them. They're they're over at HartmannReport.com every day, and anybody can download them and use them however they want. There's some great ones in there. But there's also, great real music out there being done by real musicians. I would always probably go for those first. We do these just because we really have no choice. We have to have non-copyrighted music on the program, or we can't have music at all, which for years we had no music at all, which was a real loss. We used to love our bumper music. But I'm blithering here. Michael, thank you. That's a great idea as well.
Every college student that just heard us have this discussion, contact your radio station. They need to be reaching out to you and get the capitalism and freedom songs going.
Yeah, there you go. Michael, thank you.
Reach for your keys.
Spot on. Thank you. Marie in Atlanta. Hey, Marie, what's up? Marie?
Hear me?
Hey, Marie.
Can you
You're
hear
on
me?
the air.
Oh, there you
Indeed,
go.
I can hear you just
Sorry
fine.
about that.
It's quite all right.
Thanks for taking my call, Tom. I've got 2 points and a PSA. I'll start with the PSA. Regarding the SAVE Act, of course, we hope that the Democrats will oppose it, will filibuster it, do everything they can. Yeah. But at the end of the day, for those who already have at least the documents that you'll need in the event that they are unregistered, and I'm not really sure how Raffensperger is planning on doing it, but he's announced something like 455,000 planned purges from voter rolls here.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, exactly. So So for those who already have the documents, check the expiration date. Check the expiration date of your passport and of your driver's license, because those are the things that most likely are going to be, for those who already have a passport, you're going to have to go and renew, and you'll be asked for a proof of citizenship. Passport card is a little cheaper. So for those who don't have a passport, good idea to apply for it now. And birth certificate, order birth certificates now. Again, the earlier the better. And if you're ordering a passport or a passport card, bear in mind, right now we're dealing with the Trump administration, and God only knows, whether DOJ has thinned out the ranks of the State Department, which issues the passports, and what kind of chicanery they may get up to. So I wanted to make that PSA first. But the 2 points, real quick. You were talking about, it seems like Trump is trying to spark some kind of a war with China at a minimum with regard to the tariffs, but that he may actually want some kind of hot war, a shooting war. And I'll be candid with you, I've been thinking for a very long time that his infatuation with the power of the presidency over the military, he is so eager, he's so, as the young people say, thirsty to use that power, that I'm sorry to say, I really feel like it's going to happen. It may not be China, but I really feel like he's been saber rattling at every opportunity because he just wants to be the guy who's telling the troops where to go.
Yeah.
And then finally, with regard to the tariff brag in the Oval, he's standing talking about, oh, this person just made X millions of dollars. And that person, among the people that he bragged about, was Charles Schwab. And what I don't think most people connected was that was essentially a commercial for Charles Schwab Financial Services.
Right.
Think about it.
And
you
the
want to make $1 million?
Yeah, and the financial services company are taking advantage of this moment. I don't know if you've noticed that they're starting to run ads on TV, and I think the reason why is because people are looking at for example, their spouse and saying, oh, you've been managing our 401k and you just lost us 15%. Maybe we should go to professional management.
Exactly. So, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if that was Trump's way of doing a solid for Charles Schwab and his company.
Yeah.
Wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, Marie. Marie, thank you very much for the call. It's great to hear from you. And it's 47 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay tuned. It's the Thom Hartmann program. Fair and only slightly unbalanced. I'll be right back with your calls. Anything Goes Weekend.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I think the important thing to remember about this trade war is that China views these tariffs as if we were shooting bullets at them. They view this as a war. Take this seriously. And welcome back. Dave in Valley Ford, California. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I'm just calling to say that tomorrow marks 80 years since Franklin Roosevelt died.
Oh, really? Exactly 80 years? Wow.
Exactly 80 years. He died on the 12th of April in 1945.
Yeah.
And in his 12 years and 1 month as president, he brought us the country that we know now.
You're right.
And
which Trump and Musk are trying to tear down.
Yes, and I'm forever thankful to Franklin Roosevelt. It's too bad he didn't live longer and get to see bring about the peace after World War II.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, Dave, thank you very much. I appreciate your calling and pointing that out. Gregory in Ventura, California. Hey, Gregory, what's on your mind today?
Hey, hi, Tom. Well, it's a pretty rudimentary question that I think I should know the answer to, but it's free college. I'm all for free college.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, free college, great. How would teachers and professors get paid, especially with the Department of Education being shut down? Would it be reallocation of taxes, or how would that work? I figure you would know.
Free college is only free to the people who are attending. It's actually paid for by the government. Every developed country in the world pays for college, except the United States, pays for college for their students. And there's a reason why. We learned this reason in the 50s and 60s with the GI Bill. The money we spent on the GI Bill, every $1 we spent on the GI Bill educating the mostly young men who came back from World War II. And for example, my wife's father was one, and my father went to college on the GI Bill, but he didn't graduate. Mom got pregnant with me, and that was the end of that. But Louise's father not only graduated, but got a graduate degree, became a lawyer, and became the Assistant Attorney General for the state of Michigan. What that meant was that he was earning, 2 or 3 times what he would have earned if he had never gotten a college degree. So what they found was when they looked at the taxes that were being paid by people like Louise's dad, for every $1 that the nation invested in educating its young people, we made back $7 over the course of their lifetime in taxes, additional taxes that they paid because they had higher income than they would have paid had they not gone to college. So we got a 700% return on our investment by simply investing in college students. Every other democracy in the world understands this, and it's why we're literally the only country. In Germany, they pay you $300 a month to go to college. In Denmark, they pay you $600 a month to go to college. They not only give you college for free, they give you a stipend. In some countries, they give you free housing. You've got over 350,000 American students who are going to college in Germany for free right now. You've got American students who are going to college in Romania for free right now. You've got American students who are going to college in Denmark for free right now. Everybody else in the world gets this, but here in the United States, the Republican Party exclusively says, "Oh, college should be a money-making opportunity." And so if you can't make money on college itself, we can certainly make money on the loans. And so we've got $1.5 trillion worth of student debt that's preventing people from getting married, it's preventing them from starting families, it's preventing them from starting small businesses. It is acting as a massive drag on our economy. And by not having a fully educated workforce, we're slipping behind China in the technology race. We're slipping. It's just a disaster for the country. Brought to you by a bunch of greedy effing billionaires on the GOP side. Gregory, I got to run, but thanks for the call. We'll be back. It's 52 minutes past the hour. Stay with us. Our daily song is now available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other platforms. Just look for songs by Louise and Thom Hartmann. Check it out. Human beings have a couple of unique characteristics. The first is that we can be very tender and loving and concerned and caring toward people we perceive as being our group, us. We can also be extraordinarily violent against people that we consider to be them, if we think of them or this other as a threat. Probably the classic example of this is Adolf Hitler convincing Germans that, Jews were a threat to them and good Germans going along with the Holocaust. Well, this othering is built into our DNA. This is, ancient stuff. And the Republican Party, since the time of Nixon, when he started, picking up the white racist vote after Democrats laid it down in the 60s, the Republicans have been using this to try to other minorities in America as a political strategy. And this is really deadly stuff. There's a whole op-ed about it over at HartmannReport.com. Is othering human nature's deadliest instinct? Check it out. And welcome back. 54 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. How are you doing? Talk about China, Taiwan. I think it would be very difficult for China to invade Taiwan. Taiwan's 100 miles off the Chinese coast. The Chinese Navy has little or no experience conducting amphibious operations under wartime conditions. The Taiwanese Navy has 40-plus frigates and destroyers armed with anti-ship missiles, very capable Army and Air Force, and thousands of drones that could deploy. Plus, our U.S. Pacific Fleet has nuclear attack subs, aircraft carriers, etc. So I think it would be very difficult for the Chinese to do this.
Do you think they would fail if they tried? Or do you think it would just be one bloody mess?
Either one bloody mess or they'd fail, because that's a lot of distance to cover under attack by, torpedo-armed submarines, drones, anti-ship missiles.
Yeah.
Like I say, the Chinese Navy has practically no battlefield experience. At least our Navy, we've been launching strikes against the Houthis aircraft carrier operations. They've got 3 aircraft carriers, but they've never used them under wartime conditions.
Well, that's reassuring, George. And I know your background. I have a lot of respect for your opinions on these particularly international matters. How do you see China reacting to the United States beyond just cutting off our rare earth minerals here in this trade war? And do you think that it's possible?
I think they're going to try a trade war like you're suggesting. Cutting off medical supplies. Computer chips. I think it's Taiwan that supplies most of ours, but I'd say, in addition to the rare earth metals. Oh, one other thing. You remember Hitler's Operation Sea Lion in 1940?
I do not. I'm sorry.
That was the planned invasion of Great Britain in 1940, and it never came off because the Germans couldn't cross the 20-some-odd miles of the English Channel because the RAF controlled the skies and the Royal Navy controlled the seas. That was just 20-some-odd miles. And Hitler had almost all the cards, Britain left most of its heavy equipment at Dunkirk. Mm-hmm. It was just the RAF that saved the day, and Hitler could never even cross 20-some-odd miles of the English Channel to invade Britain.
Interesting. Well, that's reassuring, because I have been very concerned that Taiwan could be the flashpoint that leads us to World War III.
I am too, but exactly. You never know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to know whether Trump would even support Taiwan if the Chinese invaded.
I doubt he would, frankly. I think he would say, well, they haven't given me enough money, and they haven't come over here and kissed my ass
you're
enough.
paying 5% of your defense budget or whatever.
Yeah, there you go. George, thanks for the call. Always great to hear from you, and I appreciate your insights. We're hitting the top of the hour. On the other side of the break, Senate Dems want a Social Security boost. There's a new dress code in D.C. The SAVE Act just passed. And wannabe dictator just left office.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at ThomHartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. The subtitle, Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again. This is from the introduction titled Walking in Memphis. When he was 9 years old, my godson developed a brief but freakishly intense obsession with Elvis Presley. He took to singing Jailhouse Rock at the top of his voice with all the low crooning and pelvis jiggling of the king himself. He didn't know this style had become a joke, so he offered it with all the heart-catching sincerity of a preteen who believes he's being cool. In the brief pauses before he started singing it all over again, he demanded to know everything about Elvis. And so I jabbered out the rough outline of that inspiring, sad, stupid story. Elvis was born in one of the poorest towns in Mississippi, a place far, far away, I said. He arrived in the world alongside his twin brother, who died a few minutes later. As he grew up, his mother told him that if he sang to the moon every night, his brother could hear his voice. So he sang and sang. He began to perform in public just as television was taking off. So in a sudden swoosh, he became more famous than anyone had ever before been. Everywhere Elvis went, people would scream until his world became a chamber of screams. He retreated into a cocoon of his own construction where he gloried in his possessions in place of his lost freedom. For his mother, he bought a palace and named it Graceland. I skimmed through the rest, the descent into addiction, the sweating, gurning, stage jammering in Vegas, the death at the age of 42. Whenever my godson, who I'll call Adam, I've changed some details here to avoid identifying him, asked questions about how the story ended, I got him to duet Blue Moon with me instead. You saw me standing alone, he sang in his little voice, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. One day, Adam looked at me very earnestly and asked, Johann, will you take me to Graceland one day? Without really thinking, I agreed. Do you promise? Do you really promise? I said I did. And I never gave it another thought until everything had gone wrong. 10 years later, Adam was lost. He had dropped out of school when he was 15, and he spent literally almost all his waking hours at home alternating blankly between screens. His phone, an infinite scroll of WhatsApp and Facebook messages, and his iPad on which he watched a blur of YouTube and porn. At moments, I could still see in him traces of the joyful little boy who sang Viva Las Vegas, but it was like that person had broken into smaller, disconnected fragments. He struggled to stay with the topic of conversation for more than a few minutes without jerking back to his screen or abruptly switching to another topic. He seemed to be whirring at the speed of Snapchat, somewhere where nothing still or serious could reach him. He was intelligent, decent, kind, but it was like nothing could gain any traction in his mind. During the decade in which Adam had become a man, this fracturing seemed to be happening to some degree to many of us. The sensation of being alive in the early 21st century consisted of the sense that our ability to pay attention, to focus, was cracking and breaking. I could feel it happening to me. I'd buy piles of books and I'd glimpse them guiltily from the corner of my eye as I told myself, just one more tweet. I still read a lot, but with each year that passed, it felt more and more like running up a down escalator. I had just turned 40, and wherever my generation gathered, we would lament our lost capacity for concentration, as if it was a friend who had vanished one day at sea and never been seen since. Then one evening, as we lay on a large sofa, each staring at our own ceaselessly shrieking screens, I looked at Adam and felt a low dread. We can't live like this, I said to myself. Adam, I said softly, let's go to Graceland. What? I reminded him of the promise that I had made to him so many years before. He couldn't even remember those blue moon days, nor my pledge to him, but I could see that the idea of breaking this numbing routine ignited something in him. He looked up at me and asked if I was serious. I am, I said, but there's one condition. I'll pay for us to go 4,000 miles. We'll go to Memphis and New Orleans. We'll go all over the South, anywhere you want. But I can't do it if when we get there, all you're going to do is stare at your phone. You have to promise to leave it switched off except at night. We have to return to reality. We have to connect with something that matters to us. He swore he would, and a few weeks later, we lifted off from London Heathrow toward the land of the Delta Blues. When you arrive at the gates of Graceland, there's no longer a human being whose job is to show you around. You're handed an iPad, and you put in little earbuds, and the iPad tells you what to do. Turn left, turn right, walk forward. In each room, the iPad, in the voice of some forgotten actor, tells you about the room you're in, and a photograph of it appears on the screen. So we walked around Graceland alone, staring at the iPad. We were surrounded by Canadians and Koreans and the whole United Nations of blank-faced people looking down, seeing nothing around them. I watched them as they walk, feeling more and more tense. Occasionally, somebody would look away from the iPad, and I felt a flicker of hope, and I'd try to make eye contact with them to shrug, to say, hey, we're the only ones looking around. We're the ones who traveled thousands of miles. The book Stolen Focus by Johann Hari.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the third hour of our Friday weekend show. It's Anything Goes weekend here. Big scoop, top Senate Democrats. This is Chuck Schumer and, let's see, Elizabeth Warren, Ron Wyden have introduced the Social Security Emergency Inflation Relief Act. The theory here is that Donald Trump's tariffs are going to drive really consequential inflation in the United States. Probably, 80% of the stuff in Walmart, I believe the actual number is 70%, and probably a good chunk of the stuff you find on Amazon and, other online spaces. You walk into, any of these retail stores around the country, and you find, certainly well over 50% of everything they've got is made in China. And right now we've got a 145% tariff on things coming from China to the United States, which means that they are costing their importers at least twice what they used to cost. So, people are going to pass those costs along, or they're just going to stop importing, which is unlikely. So what Wyden and Warren and Schumer are saying is we need to give everybody who's on Social Security in the country an extra $200 a month. And let me just double check that. Is that one time? Yeah, it's $200 a month to shield beneficiaries from price increases stemming from Trump's tariff policies. Sounds like a great idea to me. Also, have you seen this? Remember, those of you of a certain age will remember the Cultural Revolution in the 90s or maybe it was the 80s in China, where Mao Zedong rose to power, slaughtered large chunks of the Chinese population, threw people into work camps and farm camps and the whole re-education thing and everything else. And the way that you showed your loyalty to dear leader, to the emperor, to Mao Zedong, was you wore a little round red pin with a gold picture or gold embossed head of Mao Zedong on it. It was, a little Mao pin. Well, now you can buy a Trump pin that looks pretty much the same. And in fact, Brendan Carr, the FCC chairman, who is going to destroy net neutrality as soon as he gets around to it, Brendan Carr was wearing one day before yesterday, apparently, in Washington, D.C., and somebody tweeted it. If this isn't proof that we are living in an era of a strongman cult of personality, I don't know what it's going to take to make people realize. The House of Representatives yesterday passed the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act it stands for Safeguard American Voter Eligibility, and what it really means is prevent people from voting. If you are a woman who is married and you changed your name when you got married and you didn't go to court and get paperwork proving that, you may not be able to register to vote. Even Hillary Clinton is speaking out about this. And additionally, 9% of Americans, 21.3 million people, don't have any proof of citizenship. They don't have access. They don't know where their birth certificate is, the home birth, the hospital burned down, whatever. Brennan's Center CEO Michael Waldman characterizes the bill as, quote, one of the worst pieces of voting legislation in America's history. Hillary Clinton says, and I quote, The House just passed the Republican voter suppression measure that threatens voting access for millions of Americans, including 69 million women whose married names don't match their birth certificates. She said, "Are you a woman who changed your name when you got married? Congress is considering a bill," well, they just passed it, "that could make it much harder for you to vote. Call your representative. This is not a drill." I would add, by the way, 4 Democrats voted for this piece of crap. Ed Case of Hawaii, Henry Cuellar of Texas, Jared Golden of Maine, and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez of Washington State, who, is turning out to be almost more of I'd say all of these 4 are turning out to be more Republicans than Democrats in many regards. And finally, South Korea's disgraced President Yoon Suk-yeol, finally left the presidential palace yesterday. Or today, actually. I guess it was, hours and hours ago, because Friday arrives earlier there than here. But this was after his disastrous December 3rd declaration of martial law. And that provoked the South Korean parliament to impeach him. He's been impeached, and therefore he had to leave the president's mansion, which he has done. He did today. And along with his 11 cats and dogs, which makes me think he can't be terrible, right? But actually, apparently he is terrible. And the opposition candidate, Lee Jae-myung, is now the front runner. Lee ran against Yoon in the last election and lost by a whisker. And he's probably going to be the next president of South Korea. One of his neighbors says, "What's he going to do with all his pets?" But he's also now looking at prosecution for trying to overthrow the government, for sedition, which, of course, you and I both know is what should have happened to Donald Trump and didn't, tragically. So what's on your mind? It's Anything Goes weekend, after all. Dr. Appleby in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Hey, Doc, what's up?
Hello. I have 2 points I'd like to make. Convicted felon Trump, because of the position it was erroneously allowed to enter, has a constitutional duty to protect and provide for U.S. citizens and properly steward the resources taken from us by the federal government. We pay for that. We pay its salary, elected legislators' salaries, and judges' salaries. Instead, it is variously abandoning, abusing, neglecting, and stealing from us, their constituents.
Right.
To use a metaphor, in the movie Nightmare Before Christmas, Boogie Woogie masquerading as Santa Claus brought death and destruction. The legislators employed by us are failing in their duty to intervene, provide checks and balances, and protect us. To use a second metaphor, if a spouse divorces or abandons their partner, and he or she has greater resources, a judge will order the ex-spouse to support the one with less resources. So extrapolating back to my elected legislators, as they refuse to represent us, they become responsible, in my opinion, to provide for us what they allowed to be stolen: shelter, food, clothing, medical care, transportation, etc. They have made themselves accessories.
Yeah, I get it. I discourage people from reading Dr. Appleby. It just, it puts people to sleep. But, your point is well made. Thank you for calling and making it. Ed in Belfair, Washington. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Hey, happy Friday, Tom.
Thanks, back at you.
Last night I watched the town hall. Do you mind if I mention where?
No, it's fine. Yeah, no problem.
On CNN.
Sure.
And they had 2 Democratic Party members on there, and they had 2 of the Granbury Old Thinking Party members on there. Hayes, I think it was Representative Hayes from Connecticut, and Lauer and Derrick. And Derrick's a Democrat from, I believe, California. McKenzie is from Pennsylvania. But anyway, I've noticed, it happens all the time now. The word salad, I think that the Republican Party, the GOP, are they own word salad. they cannot say anything at all except, I mean, I can talk like they do. The moon is going to go around the sun, and then the sun's going to touch the moon, and all of a sudden I'm going to get up out of my chair and go make a sandwich. That's the way they talk. They don't make any sense.
Yeah, I get it.
But I wanted to say that the representative from Connecticut, Hayes, Representative Hayes, she smoked him. If you could get her on your program, she did a great job last night. And they were talking about voter fraud and how much waste there is that Musk has been finding, but they haven't come up with. I've been trying to research it. I don't see anything that. How many people have been prosecuted? Who's been stealing?
Nobody.
Where this money's been going?
Nobody, Ed.
No.
I mean, and in fact, you're seeing this start to pick up steam over on X. You know, the right-wing swamp, where these young men, these incels, are starting to say, "Hey, we want to see some prosecutions. Damn it! You're finding trillions of dollars of fraud. You know, put somebody in jail." And so far, they haven't found a single person apparently who's committing fraud.
No, and that's why I think Representative Hayes from Connecticut chewed him up. She just goes, I can't wait till we have these hearings so we can find out all this waste, where it's going, who's been. It was just amazing. But if I could, okay. I just wanted to say, every time I think of Musk and Trump, I think of Musk throwing money in his pie hole on the top, and out the bottom pie hole is billions coming out for Musk. Every time I think of those.
There you go.
Anyway, have a great weekend.
Not a picture I want to carry around in my head, Ed, but I get it. Thanks a lot for the call. 16 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's Anything Goes Weekend. Stay tuned.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Talk media for the sane among us. Yes, we are still here. Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Steve in Rockwood, Oregon. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hey, so I want to talk about the Democratic Party and that people need to get involved with it. So often when I hear people talk about they don't like the Democratic Party because they're just like the Republican Party, and oftentimes I ask them, well, have you ever been to a Democrat Party meeting? No. Every county has its own Democratic Party meeting every month. And that is where the power is in the Democratic Party. You show up there and you can control things. If you live in a red county with a small red county and there aren't a whole lot of people going to the Democratic Party meeting, if you show up there with 3 of your friends, you just might have enough people to take it over.
Yeah. And here's the thing that most people don't realize is if you're represented by a Democrat in Congress or in the Senate, when they come back to the district, when they come back to the state, the first people they meet with are the people who are showing up for the party meetings. If you want to, rather than just calling their office and leaving a message, if you want to talk to one of your elected representatives face to face, that's how to do it. And if you live in a red district, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, a lot of the Democrats are very disheartened in these areas, and that's a great place where you can not only take over the local Democratic Party and move it more progressive, but also, lay the foundation for an eventual challenge to the Republicans.
And I've been to a Republican county meeting. I had a small business, and a guy came to me and said, hey, you need to be a Republican. Come to this meeting. So I went to their meeting. Everything at the Republican meeting was top down. Everything was, this is what the party wants, and everybody agreed with it. I was in Nevada during the Bush administration, and we would oftentimes get stuff from the Democratic Party. Here's what Harry Reid wants. Well, we don't want that, and there would be
pushback.
Discussions and arguments about, Republicans are top down, Democrats are bottom up. We can control them if we just show up.
Yeah, well said, Steve. Steve, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That was brilliant. Francis in Seattle. Hey, Francis, what's on your mind?
Hi, I'm calling about Medicare Advantage specifically to Kaiser.
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 ways I've dealt with Medicare. One is as a practicing physician for 30 years, and I had an individual policy through Kaiser during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became disabled, and if you're on Social Security disability in my state, you have to be on Medicare Advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I turned 65, I quickly switched to regular Medicare. And I had huge trouble with Medicare Advantage, and unfortunately slipped and herniated a disc.
Ouch.
And it rapidly progressed over a few weeks into my entire left leg being paralyzed.
Whoa.
And being in pain, the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. The pain was so bad I couldn't think.
And Kaiser was not dealing with it well?
I saw 13 different doctors at Kaiser, doctors, PAs, healthcare providers. And the first 12 said, I can see you're in a lot of pain, but since I don't know what it is, I'm not going to give you any pain med. And they also refused to try and figure out what it was because doctors just don't diagnose anymore since Reagan.
Yeah, that's so sad. Francis, I'm sorry I'm out of time, but is your bottom line suggestion don't go with Kaiser Medicare Advantage?
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. You know, other countries enjoy benefits like free health care in college, modern mass transit, affordable housing, food, and drugs. They also have inexpensive internet and phone service without companies listening and selling their information. Schools that don't need to mention school shooters. Streets and parks filled with pedestrians and children instead of tents and homeless people. We, on the other hand, have the world's largest collection of billionaires. Most Americans probably didn't realize this was the choice they were making back in the election of 1980 when Reagan and Bush promised morning in America. But here we are. We have been just basically sold out to the billionaires by all these years of Republican, Reaganomics. What do we do about it? Well, there's a lot we can do about it, and it starts with getting politically active. There's a great op-ed about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, America Chose Wealth Over Well-Being. Check it out. Welcome back. 22 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's up?
Hey, I wanted to list my favorite presidents since I was born in the last 71 years.
Okay.
And I would start off with Bill Clinton being number one. And it's basically because he has the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I put Johnson at number 2, except that he had Vietnam. And Biden and Obama are tightly following those.
Yeah, it's a reasonable list.
And it still bothers me when I hear people trashing Bill Clinton all the time when the base put him at 66% approval when he left office. That's the highest approval of any president in the history of this country. That was since they've been keeping records.
Wow.
So he's number one as far as voter approval,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else falls behind him.
Yeah. Well, he created a hell of a lot of jobs. He took an economy that was pretty rocky under George Herbert Walker Bush and Ronald Reagan and put it back together. My only complaint is his embrace of neoliberal free trade policy, but that was everybody was going along with that at the time, me included.
That's where you and I still have a disagreement on that. Bill Clinton increased taxes on the rich. All of those Republicans put taxes on the rich. Bill Clinton did not get a recession. All the Republicans got a recession. Bill Clinton saw the most jobs created than any other president in history. So I would never put Bill Clinton in the category of any, I almost said a bad word, any Republican that was president.
Okay.
But also, the Fed added a little, I think $4 billion to the stock market in the last week. We don't know if they're adding more this week because we won't get those numbers.
I'm curious your take on this ongoing sell-off of treasuries. I'm hearing that Mark Carney may have engineered this with some of our allies, and that they're basically trying to punish us for Trump's tariffs. What are you seeing, Larry, and what's your take on it?
You talking about China? You talking about Canada?
Yeah, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada. Apparently, he organized this meeting.
I heard that one, and it sounds very probable.
Mm-hmm.
And but I also am aware that some of the things that the Fed chair has been doing actually kind of forced the bonds to have these unnatural levels, and he did that to get rid of Joe Biden. That's why he kept the Fed rate up so high for so long. Mm-hmm. That created the imbalance that we're seeing ripples.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Even today,
I don't think we needed to have 4% and 5% interest rates in the last year of the Biden presidency. I mean, we had inflation down to what, 2.6%.
I tell you what would be interesting if you were to check on one of those artificial intelligence machines and just ask it who got the highest Fed rate hikes of all the last presidents since Jimmy Carter, including Jimmy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And you will find a number that is unbelievable. And for the Fed to go out there and always claim that it's not biased, it is just a blatant fault. It's one of the biggest lies of the century. But if you did that, you would find that the Democrats have been getting killed with the Fed rate. And the Republicans get the zero Fed rates. Two Republicans got that. One of them got 1% and 0% Fed rate. And this is only good towards the end of a stay in the White House. When you start off with zero, that is
so
very bad.
I just hang on just a second. 5 in each category. I just asked ChatGTP, and who had the highest and lowest, and it said the highest Fed rate increase was Jimmy Carter under Fed Chief Paul Volcker, 20%, and the lowest was during George W. Bush's administration, and it continued into Barack Obama's. So then I said, give me the top 5 and the bottom 5. The top 5 increases: Carter, Reagan, Nixon, Bush, and Trump. And the largest decrease is Bush, Obama, Biden, Kennedy, and Eisenhower. So it doesn't seem political, Larry.
You got that backwards.
Larry, I got to run.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's Anything Goes Weekend. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Tyranny, From Plato to Trump, Fools, Sycophants, and Citizens by Andrew Fiala. This is from the preface. It starts out with a quote from Mary Wollstonecraft from her book, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Quote, "Tyrants would have cause to tremble if reason were to become the rule of duty." We recently witnessed the failure of a would-be tyrant who attempted to subvert the rule of law and overturn the result of a democratic election. The American system was pushed toward a cliff, but constitutional guardrails slowed things down. Conscientious people pumped the brakes, and the system held. This was a lesson of tyranny averted. We should take stock and learn what worked and what needs improvement in our system and in our souls. And while the American crisis of 2020-2021 was frightening, a broader historical perspective helps. The threat of tyranny is common, but the cure is well known. It involves virtuous citizenship and a stable constitution. The tyrant's rise and fall is an old story. Consider, a plague descended on the nation as the tyrant ranted and raved, refusing to admit that he was the cause of the nation's ills. The tyrant lived in a fantasy world of his own creation. He refused to accept what was said by those who spoke truth to power. Instead, he listened only to those who flattered his ego and encouraged him in his delusions. The nation suffered profoundly under the tyrant and his plague. He tried to blame the plague on some other scapegoat. Members of the public were seduced by the tyrant and his sycophants to sacrifice everything on behalf of a lie. Violence erupted. When the awful truth was finally revealed, the chorus reached a tragic conclusion. Our lives were mere shadows, and then there's a block of poetry here. Our lives were mere shadows, happiness fades away to nothing. The tyrant's fall reminds us that no human creation lasts forever. Plague and trouble make victims of us all. This is from Oedipus, the Tyrant, lines 1190. This is the story of Oedipus. It is also the story of Donald Trump. The players in this tragedy are found throughout history. They are the tyrant, his sycophants, and the moronic masses. The tyrant rages, the sycophants simper, the masses cheer and howl, fight and die. As the plague spreads, good things fall apart and decency suffers. This tragedy brings with it the risk of despair. The good news is that the cure for this disease is well known. It is, as Mary Wollstonecraft suggested, reason. Life in general must be made reasonable. This means we need a reasonable constitution as well as wise and virtuous citizens. Wisdom and virtue work together to prevent tyranny. Plato and Aristotle knew this, as did John Adams. Adams wrote in his diary when he was Vice President of the United States, quote, "Tyranny can scarcely be practiced upon a virtuous and wise people." But wisdom, virtue, and reason are often lacking. Wollstonecraft, I've got my Marys wrong. This is Wollstonecraft, I'm sorry. Wollstonecraft laments the fact that, quote, "tyranny in whatever part of society it rears its brazen front will ever undermine morality." Tyranny is not only a political problem, it is also a moral and spiritual one. It afflicts our souls as well as churches, businesses, and family life. Wollstonecraft's important contribution was to argue that for the liberation of women in an era when women were oppressed by the tyranny of patriarchal families. Wollstonecraft was a contemporary of Thomas Jefferson and other thinkers of the 18th century Enlightenment. Despite their claims to enlightenment, the heroes of this tradition suffered from moral blindness, as we all do. Jefferson's words inspired a revolution against the tyrant King George III. The words inscribed in the Jefferson Memorial state, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." But Jefferson owned slaves, one of the more obvious forms of tyranny in the world. We must all be careful of our blind spots. Reason aims to shed light by holding up a mirror. The remedy for tyranny is philosophical self-examination. This is an ongoing process, not a panacea. Each generation must seek to make progress on their path to enlightenment. The good news is that we have made progress. Women were liberated and slavery was abolished. The idea that wisdom and virtue can cure tyranny predates the Enlightenment by over 2,000 years. It was the solution proposed by the ancient Greeks, who gave us the very language we will employ here. Words such as tyranny, sycophancy, democracy, and political philosophy. The Greeks emphasized the need for virtue among the players in the political drama. Modern thinkers built upon this and emphasized the need for a rational system of government that prevents tyranny. Tragedy is avoided when leaders and citizens are virtuous and when a stable constitutional system guarantees individual rights, divides power, and creates checks and balances. We have known the cure for thousands of years, but the disease is genetic. Every generation or so, the conditions conspire to bring together an ugly cast of characters that includes the tyrant, his sycophants, and the moronic fools who cheer him on. The book, Tyranny from Plato to Trump, by Andrew Fiala. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, or one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag You're It. When I was a little kid, my grandmother had a piano and I loved to play it. I was incompetent, but I was figuring out all kinds of stuff. And then I kind of got away from it and, went to school and things got busy and just lost track of it. Well, now there's this fascinating new study out of the University of Geneva, Switzerland, that is making me think maybe I should go back and learn the piano. What they found was that they took a group of 132 healthy older adults, retired, 62 to 78 years old. Half of them learned the piano, half of them took music classes without learning the piano. And what they found was that those who learned the piano actually had the strongest increase in their memory, in their mental competence, their mental faculties. Those who took the music classes also did well, but learning the piano was a huge step. So check it out. There's a whole long rant about this over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
There is a house in Washington they call the Fallen One. It's filled with gold and grievance, and it's poisoned what we've done. My mother taught me justice, my father spoke of grace, but now that house has traded both for rage and a red hat face. He came down golden escalators with fire behind his grin. He fed the mob their fantasies and cashed their anger in. Oh, tell your daughters everywhere to look what hate has spun. Don't let them walk the path that leads to the house of the fallen one.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Mike in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure. What's on your mind?
So I would like you to help clarify something. I've got 9 years experience in municipal budgeting. I was in charge of a $20 million a year public safety budget. So I have a little budget background. Why is it that every time we discuss the federal budget and the deficit, we group together Social Security, Medicare, and usually they throw in defense. Some of them even hide from defense. Social Security is a standalone program, and it will be until it isn't. Medicare should be a standalone program. I pay premiums. You pay premiums. That's a separate budget from the federal budget and does not contribute to the deficit or shouldn't. It should be discussed separately, and there's never any pushback from Democrats. I know why Republicans do it, because it's dramatic. But why do we not push back on that and every single time say, sorry, Social Security has nothing to do with the deficit?
Well, not only does Social Security have nothing to do with the deficit, there's a $1.6 trillion Social Security trust fund, which is held in treasuries. So, you know, we're helping out by buying treasuries. Social Security is. I mean, you know, it's invested in unique treasuries. But the argument that you're making, Mike, is the argument that Al Gore was making in 2000. Al Gore wanted Social Security to be a member of the lockbox. He wanted it to be in a lockbox. He wanted Social Security funds to be segregated from general funds. You know, just so that Republicans couldn't mess with it. And he tried to do that legislatively. He campaigned on it, but it never got done. So Social Security, even though the Social Security Administration has a deal with the Treasury Department where they buy a special kind of Treasury bond that's, you know, not available to any other agency or group or anything else that has priority for repayment, as would any government agency. And I'm not sure. Social Security may not be the only one that, you know, has a surplus and has it invested in treasuries. But it is still technically part of the general fund, and that's the problem. Did I answer your question?
I just think it ought to be. Well, it does. It just should be more clarified because it allows it to look like it's part of the problem when it's really not part of the problem.
No, it's part of the solution. In fact, no, I completely agree with you. This morning, I think Mike Lawler is his name. He's a Republican congressman from New York. Was on Joe Scarborough's program, and he was going on and on about how. You know, we've got a problem here of a $36 trillion debt, and it's driven entirely by spending. And I'm yelling at the TV, no, it's driven by 4 Republican tax cuts. You know, you add them all up, you know, Reagan, Bush, and Trump, those tax cuts, and they equal more than $40 trillion. I mean, all of the national debt could be accounted for with the Republican tax cuts. But, the Republicans are still promoting this lie that it's all because the government's spending too much money. That's why we have a deficit. And it's an outrageous lie. And then he went on to say, and if we want to do anything about cutting the deficit, we're going to have to go after entitlements, which, of course, is code for we're going to have to privatize Social Security and steal that, that $2.5 trillion. So that's what's up, Mike. Mike, excellent point. Thank you for the call. Catherine in Chicago. Hey, Catherine, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Hope all is well with you and everybody. I wanted to state a couple of points of the two of the most important principles when it comes to natural healing with the human body or with an animal or plants in a garden. When a body is ill, very rarely, if ever, is there a singular cause for an imbalance or an illness in a living being. And the other part of it is that there is rarely ever, if ever, one modality that'll really help in the healing. It usually takes multiple approaches to really get the body to heal because, again, there are usually so many causes: food, environment, stress, lifestyle, some genetics, blah, blah, blah. Right. And it's really important that people are aware of the modalities available to them and really to get a well-rounded, comprehensive sources of information to really start to do that. But then the final part of it is discipline, because for some issues, if not most issues, it takes a lot of discipline to really push the body into healing the way somebody would want.
Mm-hmm. No disagreement anywhere on that, Catherine. It's an important point. And, people who are obsessive about putting the right kind of gas in their car don't think twice about putting crap in their bodies. It's just, it's crazy.
Right, which is why, and, natural health food stores are important with high quality supplements.
I agree.
Knowing Chinese herbalists and acupuncturists and Western herbalists and functional medicine doctors and, those kinds of folks is a really important resource to have in your arsenal, if things kind of go awry. And there's just no one source that's going to be the one-all, be-all of healing for you. So it's good. We need to have access to all those things. And the government's trying to destroy our access to these supplements because there's so much misinformation out there and bad-mouthing what they can really do.
Yeah, I haven't seen any sign that the government's trying to stop supplements, but I've been hearing that for the better part of 50 years. But I have.
There's an organization called the Alliance for Natural Health. It's AHA-USA that has a newsletter, and there are people like Dick Durbin from Illinois who should really go.
Oh yeah, there have been a bunch of members of Congress who are in the pocket of Big Pharma who have been hostile to supplements for years.
Because they want to destroy our access to really high quality stuff. So
I don't disagree, but I don't think they're ever going to have any success. Americans love their supplements.
Yes, and the high quality stuff too, which is really important that we support our local independent health food stores and those
I completely agree. So I should reach out to there's a couple of supplement manufacturers that I just really have a lot of respect for. I'm kind of wandering into a commercial territory here. Catherine, thank you for the call. Katie in Hamul, California. Hey, Katie, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Hey. I want to tell everybody for a really good time, if you can scrape together that donation, you all have a wonderful meet and greet with Thom Hartmann, and who's a terrific and interesting host.
Yeah, thank you.
Along with the other people. It's just great. I want to tell you something you know already. Louise is brilliant. This last song, the one they started the show off with, it was a jaw dropper. Was just fantastic. I've sort of spent my life doing doggerel poetry, and I go, oh boy, am I ever just an early 70s, whatever.
She's good.
I'm barely off the block. Louise is just amazing.
Yeah.
I have one quick thing before my question, and that is, I have thought since Trump got in the first time that he is getting to the point where he actually believes that death will happen to him. Just, natural causes. And he wants everybody to die with him. Because if he can't be here, he doesn't want anybody else to be here. So maybe some psychiatrist who's listening or psychologist or somebody could take that one on. But I've always thought that's how sick he is.
Yeah.
If I can't be at the party, ain't nobody else going to be at the party.
Yeah. My old friend Armin Lehman was the 16-year-old soldier who handed Hitler the notice that the war was lost, and Hitler's response was to order the German army to bomb Berlin, to bomb Germany itself. He wanted to level the country.
I said to you some years ago that, back in his first administration, but with this one, there's not going to be a bullet.
Yeah.
It's going to be taking everybody else. I mean, I get your point, but Trump would never.
I don't think Trump will commit suicide. No.
No. That's what I said. He didn't have the class. But I have this is a question that I've been trying to research to the point where I said I'm going to call about this, and that is, why is this? How does Kilmar Abrego Garcia getting all the attention that he's getting? I mean, not that he doesn't deserve it, but so does every single person that was arrested without due process. And then I thought, when I first read this and the profiles, like you always say, they pick one person, particularly the other side does this one thing and, beats it to death, but, they pick one, but that everybody's going to remember their name. And what about, we have Heather Heyer, but the point is I thought that certainly the gay hairdresser with a tattoo, the autism tattoo, when I first read this first book, I thought, he's going to be what is it called? He's going to be the face of
the cause
nightmare.
I get it.
Yeah.
I think it's that the media, likes an individual story. Individual stories are relatable. I mean, it's important to have examples, human examples that people can empathize with. He appears to have been a genuinely nice guy. He came to the United States from Venezuela when he was 16 to avoid the gangs. He's been accused of being a gang member. He's married to an American woman. He has either 2 or 3 children, I believe 3. One of them is autistic, severely autistic, nonverbal autistic. And
somewhat like the gay hairdresser's brother, but
yeah, and I think it's just but I think the most important thing, Katie, is he is the one guy where part of the Trump team admitted in court, and this guy has now been basically fired or sidelined, or I think it was a woman actually, admitted in court that he was deported in error, and you're just not allowed to do that.
How did he get to the point that the court even knew that he existed, as opposed to all of these other, men?
Well,
see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very confusing to me, and I have an unpleasant theory that I just popped last night, and that is, if the media were going to pick a person, maybe they wouldn't pick a gay makeup artist.
Yeah. Well, it could be.
Maybe he would not be as sympathetic, because there's some way that Abrego Garcia got to the level of having his case heard.
They see a family man with 3 kids and a wife, who's a U.S. citizen, as being more relatable. I think that's probably a good piece of it, Katie. I just don't know. I don't know the details of how this worked its way through the media ecosystem. Katie, thanks for the call. And again, it was great to meet you last Friday. 48 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Weekend. Stick around. And welcome back. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind today?
Happy Friday, Tom. Thanks for taking my call, and thanks for keeping us focused and sane in these crazy times. And, like as you've been saying all week, last weekend was a joyful and peaceful display of people power. And as the Patti Smith song goes, the quote, "The people have the power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fools," unquote. So,
I love it.
So we have to keep the momentum going, and shout out to Louise for her great lyrics too. But we have to keep the momentum going, and thus we have next weekend's rallies to look forward to. And Tom, once again, since most of the corporate media tried to ignore the millions of people who showed up last weekend, I do urge people, if they didn't see it already, to go to the first 20 minutes of Rachel Maddow's Monday show and see this full scale and scope of all the marches. It was quite impressive. So, and I also heard in passing on MSNBC yesterday, I can't remember who said it, but they said Trump's combining Herbert Hoover's economic policies with Mussolini's attacks on civil liberties. And I think that's an apt description
it really
of what
is.
we're facing.
It really is.
And, you know, and we can't underestimate this guy's capacity to destroy not only America, but the world as we know it, you know, in reference to your Hartmann report today. And to that point, Tom, Hitler's rise, you know, it was facilitated in a Germany decimated by sky-high inflation and desperate economic conditions. So given that, to what extent do you think Trump might intentionally be wrecking our economy to follow in those fascist footsteps of Mussolini and Hitler?
I think it's reasonably possible, Jeff, that Donald Trump broke when he was being tried in New York State, when he had to go in there and sit and listen to people accusing him of being a criminal and hear a judge scold him and tell him to shut his mouth up and you know, behave good. And he was getting, you know, the publicity was coming out that he was soiling his diapers and you could smell him from, you know, halfway across the room and all. I think it was just humiliating to him. And he hates us. He hates America as a result. He certainly hates anybody that he perceives as a Democrat or as not a loyal Republican or not a sycophant. We're seeing now, I mean, it's getting so extreme. I mean, the woman who was the commander of the Space Force base in northern Greenland was just fired because she didn't go along with sucking up to J.D. Vance. And it's this demand for loyalty, I think, is bigger than people realize. And I think it's his way of separating in the United States, separating out the people who are willing to become basically his SS or his brown shirts or both, from the people who might be skeptical or might be concerned or might openly oppose him. And he's trying to tear us apart, and he's trying to inflict as much damage on America as he possibly can, in my opinion, because he's an angry, petulant child. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, his petty vindictiveness is legendary. I mean, but is there a larger method to his madness, I guess, is the question.
I don't think so.
Really?
I think the guy is... I think he's driven by hate and revenge.
I know, but I think we keep underestimating him at our own peril. So,
well, I would never underestimate somebody driven by hate and revenge. I mean, that was Adolf Hitler.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I mean, he was so pissed off that they threw him in jail for a year. You know, that he destroyed Germany. Jeff, thanks for the call. I really think that Trump is out to get us all. It's 52 minutes past the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back. 53 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Eli in Des Moines, Iowa. Hey, Eli, what's up?
Hi, nice to speak with you today.
Hello.
I just had a couple of questions. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let's see here. First thing first, it appears as though Kim Reynolds has announced that she's not running for re-election in the state.
She's your governor in Iowa.
Yay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's terrible. And then my second question kind of follows up, or kind of ties into the last question you had. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the possibility of Trump's intentional contraction from the global market, kind of an attempt to bolster domestic manufacturing capabilities in an effort to support, a prolonged global conflict, with intentions of, imperial conquest, with his talks of Greenland and Panama, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of stuff kind of thrown into that, Eli. I think that, and I'm pretty sure of this, that from the 80s forward, Donald Trump was watching, first the Reagan administration, then the Clinton administration, embrace neoliberal free trade and knew in his gut that that was the wrong way for this country to go. And he was right about that. Many of us were saying the same thing. Although, some of us kind of got swept up. I went back and forth throughout the 80s about whether we should do this or not. So on the one hand, his argument that, tariffs are tools to bring manufacturing back to the United States is absolutely right. I mean, I wrote a book about this, The Hidden History of Neoliberalism, saying that we need to use tariffs. But the way that he's doing it is completely wrong. You don't put tariffs on countries, you put tariffs on products. If you want to declare war on somebody, you put a tariff on their country. I should probably write a piece about how Smoot-Hawley worked out. The Smoot-Hawley tariffs in the 30s, which ultimately hurt us because they were so substantial. But they were on products. They were on individual product categories rather than on countries. You just don't, what Trump has done is he's declared a trade war with China now. And it's damn near impossible to win a trade war, particularly when the country that you're trying to have the trade war with, controls so much of what you need in your country. I was talking about rare earth minerals earlier, that China has now put export controls on. But on top of that, pretty much everything in a Walmart. So I just think that, we're in for a rough time. There was another thing that you mentioned, though, that I wanted to go off on. But I don't recall specifically what it was. What was your last point there, Eli?
It's an attempt to bolster domestic manufacturing capabilities, to support a war machine.
No, I think it's more than. I don't think it's to support a war machine. I think that's just good old-fashioned populism. So anyhow, Eli, I think we're about out of time here, and so say that again. 6 seconds. Okay, Eli, thanks a lot for the call. Here we go. Thanks a lot for being with us today, too. And special thanks to Louise Hartmann, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jay LeBlanc, Jeremy Peterson, Connor Arroyo, Carna Verity, Martha Salinas, Mateo Robertson, Diane Russell, and Ruben Michaels, all the great folks who work on our program and volunteer over in our chat rooms on YouTube and everything else. Thank you so much, and thank you for letting your stations know that you're listening and letting your sponsors know. Get out there, get active this weekend, tag you're it, have a wonderful weekend, safe and happy, and I'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.